Naruto, advancing through pure effort in Konoha. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 401 Destruction. Qingming looked back at the direction where the kunai came from, and saw that there was suddenly a crossbow cart and two figures on the rooftop, which was empty just now. Of course, what made him feel that there was a chance was not the sudden discovery of this. Long before they appeared, he had noticed something unusual through his Sharingan. Otherwise, he would not have launched an attack. The reason why he felt that there was a chance was that there were only two people next to this crossbow cart. In the past, the Hidden Mist village would deploy 3 ninjas next to each crossbow cart, one of whom was to guard against his attack, and the other 2 operated the crossbow cart to attack him. Now, with one person missing, it would not be easy for the other party to launch a counterattack. With this thought in mind, Qingming quickly glanced around, and after confirming that the other crossbow carts had not aimed at him, he immediately seized the opportunity without any hesitation, turned 180 degrees, and rushed to the rooftop again. Seeing that he had made a comeback, the Hidden Mist village chunin who had just thrown a kunai to intercept him changed his face and hurriedly threw more kunai. However, such a slow attack could not do anything to Qingming. He saw his Sharingan turn slightly, and the chakra wings behind him flapped gently, and then the whole person flew over those kunai like a butterfly flying through flowers. Seeing that the distance was almost there, Qingming quickly completed the seals with both hands, and instantly performed the ninjutsu, fire style, dragon fire style. Puff! Qingming opened his mouth, and a large amount of fire style chakra mixed with air gushed out. The next moment, a fire dragon appeared, directly crossing a distance of more than 10 meters, burning towards the 2 mist ninjas and the crossbow cart. Awakens! Two painful wails sounded. The 2 mist ninjas were engulfed by the flames, and instantly turned into a torch and began to struggle wildly. At the same time, the crossbow cart was also affected and burned in an instant. Even so, Qingming was still not satisfied. He took out another kunai from the ninja tool bag and threw it out. The kunai passed through the flames and nailed to the crossbow cart. The next moment, a violent explosion sounded. In just a moment, the crossbow cart turned into a pile of parts and was completely scrapped. Only then did Qingming nod with satisfaction, and then flew straight up. However, the time he delayed was enough for other mist ninjas to react. He saw that on the tops of the surrounding buildings, one crossbow cart after another removed its camouflage and began to continuously fire crossbow arrows with detonating tags at him to prevent him from leaving. Qingming's Sharingan kept turning, taking these crossbow arrows into his field of vision one by one, and then judging their flight trajectories. Then, he flapped his wings behind him and dodged nimbly. During this period, although he was occasionally shocked by the aftermath of the explosion of the detonating tags on those crossbow arrows, overall, he did not suffer much damage. After dodging a round of attacks, Qingming came to the sky and swept his eyes towards those crossbow carts. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. There was no other reason. Among these crossbow carts, there were several that, for some reason, had only 2 mist ninjas next to them. Qingming looked near them again and saw that the mist ninja commander was quickly mobilizing manpower to replenish them there. Opportunity, Qingming thought, and without thinking too much, he drew an arc in the air and rushed towards the crossbow carts that lacked manpower. Shoot, keep shooting, below. Seeing Qingming dare to look back, a mist ninja shouted loudly. However, it takes time to reload the crossbow arrows. Just now, Qingming had already escaped from the attack range of the crossbow carts. These mist ninjas had finally stopped, and now they suddenly had to shoot again, which was really a bit embarrassing. Taking this opportunity, Qingming pushed the wind wings to the limit, and it took less than 3 seconds to get within 20 meters. Without any hesitation, Qingming immediately took out several kunai and scattered them, shooting at the crossbow carts that were closer. Sparks flickered on these kunai. If you look closely, you can find that each of them has a detonating talisman tied to it. This is not because Qingming had foreseen and guessed that there would be such an opportunity, but that he had been preparing for this in the past few days. It's just that it happened to be used today. Seeing these kunai flying over, the nearby mist ninjas who were about to control the crossbow carts to attack Qingming no longer cared about the crossbow carts in their hands. One by one, they all took out their kunai and shuriken to throw and intercept. Seeing this, Qingming's mouth curled up slightly, and a smile appeared on his face. The next moment, he raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, opened his mouth, and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, phoenix fire technique. In an instant, dozens of fireballs like phoenix seeds spewed out of his mouth, like a fairy scattering flowers, hitting the mist ninjas. Under this attack, these mist ninjas had no time to control the crossbow carts. Qingming found the right opportunity and performed the fire style, great fireball technique and wind style, wind blade in succession, destroying 3 crossbow carts in the blink of an eye. In addition, another crossbow cart was damaged because it was too close, and it would definitely not be used in a short time. Therefore, there were only 16 crossbow carts that could be used by the mist hidden at this time, a sharp decrease of 1/4. As a result, the density of firepower naturally dropped a lot. Qingming's chakra wings behind him flapped lightly, dodging several crossbow arrows shot from the side, and then accelerated and approached a crossbow cart again. However, this time there was a standard 3-person team next to the crossbow cart, 2 of whom directly controlled the crossbow cart and aimed at him. The other one, before he launched an attack, took the lead and performed a certain fire escape ninjutsu. A slender column of fire shot out of his mouth, like a laser, shooting towards him rapidly. Qingming narrowed his eyes slightly, and his hands quickly completed the seals, and performed the ninjutsu, water escape, water array wall. In an instant, a wall of water appeared in front of him, blocking the column of fire. Zzzz, the flames and water flow met, making a harsh sound. At this moment, a crossbow arrow shot straight at him, and Qingming did not hesitate at all, and directly moved sideways to avoid the attack. Taking advantage of the gap between the opponent loading the crossbow arrow, Qingming changed the hand seals in his palm and performed the ninjutsu again, wind escape, wind blade. The next moment, a transparent wind blade appeared and cut towards the opponent at an extremely fast speed. Be careful, below. The mist ninja who had just performed a ninjutsu sensed the danger and immediately warned. However, it was too late. Swoosh, the wind blade swept across the crossbow cart and the bodies of the 2 mist ninjas, cutting them in half. Koichi. Hiruna, seeing his 2 companions fall to the ground in pain, the mist ninja cursed damn it inwardly, and quickly formed a seal and performed a ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique, attacking Qingming. Looking at the fireball flying towards him, Qingming's eyes flashed with interest. Chapter 402 Trap. As we all know, the fire style, great fireball technique is the iconic ninjutsu of the Uchiha clan. At this critical moment, the other party used this technique to deal with him. I don't know what he was thinking. If he didn't show that he had mastered the fire attribute chakra, it would be fine, but he had clearly performed the fire style ninjutsu a lot just now. Did the other party think that he didn't know this ninjutsu? Taking a step back, even if he didn't know this ninjutsu, looking at the fireball condensed by the other party, it seems that he is not very proficient in this technique. Just like this, you have the nerve to use it? Qingming shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He raised his hand to form a seal and completed the ninjutsu in an instant. He opened his mouth and spit out a huge fireball, which was also the fire style, great fireball technique. Bang, the 2 fireballs collided in the air, and the fireball belonging to the Kurigakure ninja was instantly defeated, turning into a sky full of stars and falling in all directions. The fireball condensed by Qingming continued to move forward and hit the Kurigakure ninja. The opponent's reaction was quite fast. Before the fireball came, he performed the substitution technique and escaped. Qingming ignored the opponent. With a thought, he flapped the chakra wings behind him and was about to move away from the surrounding buildings. However, at this moment, 3 rays of light shot out from the nearby buildings and gathered together not far above his head. Qingming's figure suddenly stopped and looked up. The next moment, 3 light curtains appeared, with that point as the vertex, forming a triangular pyramid shape, trapping him in it. Barrier. Seeing this scene, Qingming murmured. That's right, this triangular pyramid light curtain is the ceiling barrier. At this time, looking around, a large number of mist ninjas gathered and quickly filled the nearby buildings, surrounding him in the middle. Among these people, Qingming keenly found some familiar figures, such as Terumi Mei, Qing, Zhu Fen, etc. Many mist ninjas who had fought with him were among them. Obviously, this is a trap. Qingming recalled everything that had just happened. Some of the chariot crossbows were less manned. Although he noticed it, the mist ninja was actively mobilizing manpower to make up for it. However, It was not right for such an important device to have such a flaw, and it happened when he knew that he had ideas about these things. At that time, he just felt that the opportunity could not be missed, and he acted without thinking too much. Now thinking about it carefully, whether it was the chariot crossbow that was exposed at the beginning or the several chariot crossbows that were destroyed by him at one time, the position seemed to be somewhat deliberate. Combined with the seal barrier that suddenly appeared around him, Qingming had reason to suspect that this was a trap to lure the enemy in from the beginning to the end. What a good plan. After thinking about this clearly, Qingming's face was not very good. However, this bad mood only lasted for a while and then disappeared. Indeed, the opponent's calculation was very accurate. At this time, anyone in the ninja world would have a headache facing such a situation. But he was different. Qingming glanced at the barrier light curtain around him. Unlike the 4 mist ceiling array encountered last time, the ceiling barrier set up by the other party this time is smaller, but obviously more solid. Obviously, the last time he inexplicably came out of the barrier, the hidden mist village learned a lesson, and tried a different ceiling array this time. Unfortunately, no matter what kind of ceiling barrier, as long as it can't restrict him instantly and make him unable to use the main Gekyo Sharingan, it is meaningless. The existence of Heaven's Guardian completely overcomes this kind of power. Therefore, as long as he wants, he can easily leave this place. In other words, the dilemma in front of him does not actually exist for him. However, Qingming was not in a hurry to leave. It is better not to expose the existence of the main Gekyo Sharingan. With this thought, Qingming swept his eyes to the people around him. It can be seen that at this time, these mist ninjas have entered the barrier under the leadership of those senior ninjas. Seeing this scene, Qingming frowned slightly. Generally speaking, once the seal barrier is opened, the inside and outside will be separated. If he can't get out, the other party should not be able to get in. However, these mist ninjas actually walked in. Qingming looked closely and saw that these people all had a talisman on their bodies. Obviously, it was this talisman that allowed them to do this. From this, it can be seen that the mist ninjas were indeed well prepared. But this is also good. The more chaotic it is, the more suitable it is for me to escape. Qingming's mind moved, and he suddenly raised his hands and was about to make a seal. However, the next moment, dozens of shurikens shot at him, aiming directly at his vital points. Obviously, someone didn't want him to make a seal. But how could Qingming do as they wished? So, he divided his mind, making a seal while dodging the attacks of these shurikens. However, this was just the beginning. The next moment, more kunai and shurikens flew over, and there were many detonating talismans among them. This time, Qingming really had no way out. Helplessly, he could only temporarily give up the seal and start to use his Sharingan with all his strength, while controlling the chakra wings behind him to avoid the incoming kunai and shuriken. Of course, the most important thing was to avoid the detonating tags mixed in. Boom 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 explosions sounded one after another. One after another, red fireballs appeared, illuminating the surroundings and dispelling the darkness. In everyone's sight, a figure suddenly jumped out of the fire. Then, a large amount of white mist appeared. In the blink of an eye, it filled every corner of the barrier. This is the mist hidden technique. Everyone be careful. A mist hidden ninja quickly discovered the source of the white mist, and while giving a warning, he was ready to use wind escape to blow it away. But at this moment, Qing's voice suddenly resounded throughout the venue, and he heard him say, "Everyone pay attention, he's going to break through from above." Hearing this, all the mist ninjas seemed to have discussed it long ago, and immediately threw the kunai in their hands, shooting at a large area above. A barely perceptible groan sounded from above. Qingming glanced at the shuriken on his shoulder and frowned slightly. The next moment, his figure suddenly disappeared, and when he reappeared, he had already arrived outside the barrier. At this time, a Kurigakure Jonin outside happened to hear Qing's shout, jumped up from the top of the building next to him, and came to the top of the barrier. In an instant, the two looked at each other. What is this? Seeing Qingming's eyes that were like black suns, the Kurigakure Jonin's face showed a trace of confusion. Obviously, he didn't know the main Gekyo Sharingan. Even so, Qingming didn't intend to let the other party go. Almost instantly, he cast the Genjutsu Sharingan. With the blessing of the main Gekyo Sharingan, the power of this technique is extremely amazing. Even if it is only cast instantly, it can easily control this Kurigakure Jonin. Clang, the long sword was unsheathed. A flash of cold light passed by. Qingming held a long sword in his hand and chopped off the head of the Kurigakure Junin with one stroke. Then, he raised his left hand, quickly completed the seal, opened his mouth, and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, great fireball technique. Bang! A fireball was spit out by him, hitting the head accurately. The next moment, the head was burning fiercely. Now, even if the hidden mist village wanted to get some information from this man's head, it would be unlikely. Qingming retracted the long sword, closed the main Gekyo Sharingan, looked back at the barrier below, and then used all his strength to activate the wind style, wind wings, and flew away. Since he knew it was a trap, he would naturally not stay for long. Who knows what the other party has in store, so it is better to leave as soon as possible. Chapter 403 Training. What is that, Fiyu Town? In the sealed barrier. Qing looked at Qingming, who was going away, his eyes flickering. Just now, with the help of the perspective ability of the Byakugan, he suddenly saw an unusual energy on Qingming. Although it was covered by the water style, mist hidden technique, he could confirm that it was definitely not what the Sharingan should look like. Qing, this is not your fault. On the side, Terumi saw Qing staring straight at the direction where Qingming left, with a serious face and no words, and then she spoke to comfort him. Obviously, she mistakenly thought that Qing was a little unwilling to see Qingming leave safely, and was here to comfort him. Yes, Qing was in charge of this operation, and the target escaped, so he, as the commander, should bear the primary responsibility. Unfortunately, she didn't know what Qing saw, otherwise she wouldn't think so. And Qing didn't say what he saw for the time being. After all, words are not enough. He planned to go back and check the situation carefully. It wouldn't be too late to say it after figuring out what happened to Qingming. However, he didn't know that this was his last chance to reveal that Qingming had opened the main Gekyo Sharingan. On the other side, Qingming was flying while recalling what happened tonight and his own response methods. Not to mention the encounter, the Kurigakure village deliberately set up such a trap, and it was normal to trap him unintentionally. But his response methods, although there was interference from the water style, Kurigakure technique, Qingming estimated that Qing should still be able to see something. The chakra diffused in the mist may affect the perception of ordinary ninjas, but it is impossible to completely isolate the Byakugan from prying. And seeing that Qing was able to accurately tell his location in the end, it is likely that he had always opened the Byakugan. In this way, the changes in his opening of the main Gekyo Sharingan should have been discovered by the other party. The chakra flow that is very different from the regular Sharingan is still very obvious. Byakugan, Qingming murmured, and thought of the 2 days ago when he was carrying out the task of scouting the Kurigakure support troops. At that time, the shadow clone was thinking about getting a Byakugan to make up for the shortcomings of his Sharingan in long-distance detection. Coincidentally, the target set at that time was Qing. Perhaps, it's time to make some arrangements, Qingming thought so, and unknowingly came to the place where the shadow clones were practicing. In the past few hours, he had been here several times. The time for this refresh had not yet arrived, so he did not disturb the shadow clones from practicing. He found a place to sit down casually, and Qingming glanced at the wound on his shoulder. On the way, he had already pulled out the shuriken. And now, the wound left by it has disappeared. You know, during this period, he did not perform any healing ninjutsu, but just slightly gathered some chakra there. But just like that, in just about 10 minutes, his wound was completely healed. Obviously, after this transformation, after the physique attribute was increased to 19 points, his body's self-healing ability was once again strengthened. Not bad, Qingming nodded with satisfaction. Afterwards, he said no more, immediately raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, and performed the ninjutsu, palm immortal technique. A strong yang escape chakra appeared, and began to strengthen the body under his guidance. Once, twice, 3 times. After 15 times, Qingming felt that there was not much chakra in his body, so he stopped the spell. However, now is a good opportunity to practice the shadow clone technique. Frequently performing the shadow clone technique consumes a lot of chakra. In order to save chakra as much as possible, and to make the 15,000 points of chakra allocated to it as much as possible, he must practice when there is not much chakra in his body. And now, after the consumption of the palm immortal technique and the battle and flight just now, there is not much chakra left in his body. It's time to practice. With this thought, Qingming raised his hands, crossed them to form the Ren seal, and performed the ninjutsu, shadow clone technique. Bang, accompanied by a burst of chakra smoke. A shadow clone appeared in the field. Qingming and his shadow clone stood at the same time, feeling it quietly for a moment, then cancelled the shadow clone technique, and then performed it again. In this way, after 20 times, he stopped practicing. He opened the panel and glanced at it, and saw that the proficiency of the shadow clone technique increased by 20 points. Qingming closed the panel expressionlessly, then looked at the time, confirmed that the 1-hour time was up, and cancelled the shadow clone technique. The next moment, the 10 shadow clones who were practicing nearby disappeared at the same time. With them, 10 strands of chakra wrapped with practice experience and memory. Qingming closed his eyes and began to digest it carefully. It took about 10 minutes, and he finally transformed the practice experience and memory of these shadow clones into the proficiency of the corresponding skills. After that, he performed the shadow clone technique again without any pause, and split out 10 shadow clones. These shadow clones inherited his current state, and their understanding of the relevant skills directly reached the peak. In this way, practicing again is equivalent to continuing to climb up on this basis. And this is what he called a refreshed state. Qingming waved his hand and asked the 10 shadow clones to go and practice. He himself performed the reflection heart technique and began to guide the evolution of the Sharingan. In a flash, more than half an hour passed. There was not much chakra left in Qingming's body, so he started practicing the shadow clone technique again. After completing the practice of the shadow clone technique, the time was almost up. He once again took back the other shadow clones to digest and absorb their practice experience and memory. In this way, 1 hour was a reincarnation. He practiced like a robot. It is undeniable that such a life is very boring. However, Qingming was happy with it. Looking at the panel, the proficiency of each skill kept rising, and he felt that his efforts were not in vain. So, he practiced more vigorously. Time passed by minute. In a blink of an eye, more than 2 hours passed. The bright moon in the sky had dimmed, and it was dawn. After once again absorbing and digesting the training experience and memories provided by the 10 shadow clones, Qingming finally performed the shadow clone technique. Then, he stood up, performed the wind style, wind wings, and flew alone in the direction of the Blackstone stronghold. Next, it was time to submit the mission report, and he couldn't delay. As for the last 10 shadow clones, they would naturally be released after they completed an hour of training. By then, he would also be able to gain relevant experience and memories in the Blackstone stronghold. After that, he would need to concentrate on practicing the Palm Immortal technique and the Reflection Heart technique. Chapter 404 Success and Discovery. In a flash, 2 more days passed. What happened that night did not cause much disturbance, either in Konoha or Kirigakure. Kirigakure will not mention it, as there is no need to publicize a failed operation. Konoha may still hope that he can come a few more times to tie up Kirigakure's energy. Unfortunately, after the lesson of that night, Qingming acted much more cautiously. Although he did not have to worry about being trapped with the existence of Heaven's Guard, but knowing that the other party was targeting him, he still went head-on and confronted them. That was not courage, but stupidity. Therefore, even though the commanding Jonin of the Blackstone stronghold, Seno Nobuhisa, hinted to him several times, he pretended not to understand. And Seno Nobuhisa could not force him to do such a thing. After all, other people did not know that he had Heaven's Guard to save his life, and would only think that it was too much to ask. Once Seno Nobuhisa really did this, then other people would inevitably be in danger, because it was no different from sending people to die. Maybe they can sacrifice for the village, but they cannot die in vain. Therefore, even if Seno Nobuhisa was the commander, he would not dare to go too far. Of course, even if the other party wanted to go too far, they did not have the ability. Let alone Qingming's own will, even the Uchiha clan would not agree. After all, Qingming is also a genius ninja of the Uchiha clan. If he is forced to die, will the Uchiha clan still have face? Therefore, after some attempts, Seno Nobuhisa gave up this plan. After that, Qingming also behaved properly, still flying to Fiyu town every day to observe the actions of the Mist Ninja, and then reporting the relevant intelligence. After these days of observation, he can clearly feel that the hidden Mist village is ready to move. Of course, Konoha is also similar. Obviously, after these days of intensive arrangements, both sides are almost ready. It can be predicted that it will not be long before this war breaks out. However, Qingming doesn't care much about this. Compared with fighting, he prefers to improve himself. Another night. Late night. After Qingming completed his routine reconnaissance mission, he came to the rocky beach. Just after completing a round of training, his eyes lit up. It was because just now, with the help of his experience as a shadow clone, he successfully developed Earth Attribute Chakra. Looking at the ball of chakra in the palm of his hand, although there was nothing special about it, Qingming knew that it was a ball of Earth Escape Chakra. And with this, it means that he has taken another big step forward on the road to full attributes. Forcibly suppressing his inner excitement, Qingming dispersed the chakra in his palm. The successful development of Earth Attribute Chakra can only be regarded as the first step of a long journey. If you want to use it proficiently, you need to further master its form change and nature change. And this is the top priority. If other Jonin are willing and spend a certain amount of time, they can actually develop chakra of various attributes, but it is not so easy to master the corresponding form change and nature change. And if a ninjutsu wants to exert its full power, nature change and form change are indispensable, otherwise it is just a trick. For this reason, most of the Jonin will not blindly develop chakra attributes, but will specialize in 2 or 3. Only in this way, there will be no situation of being miscellaneous but not refined. However, Qingming is different. He does not need to practice and master the changes in form and nature. Because as long as the corresponding ninjutsu is practiced to a high enough level, he can basically master the changes in form and nature of the corresponding attributes. This is a process of reverse effect. Others cannot practice the relevant ninjutsu to a high level if they do not master the changes in form and nature of the corresponding attributes. And what about him? He first practices the relevant ninjutsu to a high level, and then naturally masters the changes in form and nature of the corresponding attributes. It can be said to be a bug. However, Qingming likes it. With this thought, Qingming recalled the requirements and methods of practicing Earth Style, Turbo Spear and Earth Style, Turning Wall in his mind, as well as Earth Style, Hardening Technique. Then, he formed seals with both hands and performed the Shadow Clone Technique. This time, he directly split out 12 shadow clones. 9 of them continued to practice other skills as usual, while the remaining 3 began to practice 3 Earth Escape Ninjutsu. Time passed by minute. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours had passed. After Qingming took back his shadow clone again and digested the relevant experience and memory, a new skill suddenly appeared on his panel, Earth Escape, Earth Lung Spear, LV0, 1/100. Looking at this new skill on the panel, Qingming smiled. Although he has not yet entered the door, and his proficiency is only LV0, 1/100, Qingming is still sincerely happy. There is no other reason. As long as it can be recognized by the proficiency panel, it is considered to be on the fast track. After that, he can easily upgrade his level by providing enough chakra, and there will be no bottleneck obstacles. In this way, how can Qingming not be happy? The only pity is that Earth Escape, Earth Flow Wall and Earth Escape, Hardening Technique failed to be successfully imprinted on the panel. Even after 2 hours, he provided enough chakra, but it did not succeed. Qingming could accept this. After all, the difficulty of learning Earth Style, Earth Spear was only C level, while the other 2 Earth Style ninjutsu were both B level ninjutsu. The difficulty of learning was different, so it was impossible for them to appear on the panel at the same time. However, with Earth Style, Earth Spear as the foundation, it was only a matter of time before the other 2 Earth Style ninjutsu were engraved on the panel. Therefore, Qingming was not in a hurry. So, after comprehending the essence of practicing Earth Style, Earth Spear for a while, he reformed the seal and performed the Shadow Clone Technique, creating 12 shadow clones and continuing the practice just now. In a flash, nearly an hour had passed. Seeing that the sky was gradually getting brighter, it was about time for Qingming to return to the Blackstone base. At this moment, several black spots appeared on the horizon and the sea level. Qingming was awakened by the shadow clones, and immediately opened his Sharingan and looked over there. Is this a ship? Qingming was in doubt. Then, he raised his hand, formed a seal, and performed the ninjutsu, Wind Style, Wings of Wind. The next moment, he flapped his wings and flew high into the sky. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, he flew directly to a height of hundreds of meters this time, and then flew towards the black spots over there. Soon, those black spots appeared in his field of vision. Just as he had just seen, they were ships, and they were warships of the hidden Mist Village. Looking at the familiar Mist Ninjas on the decks, Qingming was basically certain that these were all Mist Ninjas in Fiyu Town. If that's the case, then, suddenly, Qingming didn't know what he thought of. His expression changed slightly, and he secretly said not good, and then flew directly towards the direction of the Blackstone stronghold. If he hadn't guessed, the hidden mist village would most likely plan to attack the Blackstone stronghold by water. Indeed, according to the relative positions of Fiayu Town and the Blackstone stronghold, it would undoubtedly be easier to attack by land. After all, the fortifications before the Blackstone stronghold were built facing the sea, and the main defense was the attack launched by the hidden mist village from the sea. However, with the capture of Fiayu Town, the defense focus of the Blackstone stronghold has long been changed from the ocean to the land. The hidden mist village did the opposite this time, and undoubtedly seized this flaw. This is definitely not a decision made by the hidden mist village on a whim. There is no other reason. The time they chose is very subtle. According to the speed of the other party's ship, the time when the other party departed was exactly the time when he left after completing the reconnaissance mission. Qingming does not believe this is a coincidence. Obviously, the other party has done enough homework and knows when he usually leaves, and acts at that time in order to create a time difference. However, the other party did not expect that every time he completed a reconnaissance mission, he would practice on this reef beach for a period of time. This led to the other party's whereabouts being discovered by him directly. This is really, for a moment, Qingming didn't know whether to say that he was lucky or that the other party was unlucky. But no matter what, he was sure to get the credit. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 405 Respective Reactions. Below. Inside a Kurigakure warship. Qing suddenly opened his eyes, and his face became quite ugly. A Kurigakure Jonin next to him saw this and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong, Qing?" As the only ninja in Kurigakure with a Byakugan, Qing was placed with high hopes. He would be involved in any important mission. And this time was no exception. This time, he had only one mission, which was to use the Byakugan's ability to see through things at any time within a radius of 1 kilometer to ensure the smooth operation. Now, his face was so ugly that the Kurigakure Jonin next to him naturally felt uneasy. And Qing's next sentence immediately confirmed his guess. He heard him say, "Our whereabouts may have been exposed." What? Even though he had a premonition in his heart, when the Kurigakure Jonin heard the news, he couldn't help but speak in surprise. You know, they had been preparing for this operation for a long time, and the news was also blocked very tightly. How could it be exposed suddenly? What is the specific situation? The Kurigakure Jonin calmed down and asked again. Hearing this, Qing shook his head and said, "I don't know. I only saw Uchiha Qingming in the sky. I don't know anything else." Uchiha Qingming. Upon hearing this, the mist-hidden ninja immediately came to the window and looked outside. Seeing this, Qing said, "No need to look. He has left. The most important thing now is to tell the captain this news and see what to do next." Hearing this, the mist-hidden ninja finally reacted, so he didn't stay any longer. After saying to Qing, "You continue to monitor the surroundings," he quickly left. Suddenly, Qing was the only one left in the cabin. He looked thoughtful, and after a long time, he murmured, "It's different, this time." The chakra flow in Qingming's body was different from what he saw 2 days ago, which made him even more curious. With this thought in mind, he took out a seal scroll from his ninja tool bag. Then, he made a seal with his hands, and after a bang opened it, several books appeared in front of him. Indistinctly, you can see that these books are very old and seem to be quite old. In fact, it was true. These books were collected by him in the past 2 days with the help of the village. Most of the things recorded on them were related to the Uchiha clan. Qing carefully picked up one of them and began to read it. Soon, the cabin was filled with the sound of flipping books. After a while, Qing was immersed in it. As for the captain's determination, Qing didn't care. Or rather, he already knew the result. No matter what, this operation could not be cancelled. There was no other reason. The village had prepared for this operation for a long time, and it was impossible to give up just like that. Moreover, this operation was not just their place. The other 3 bases would also launch operations tonight or tomorrow morning. Therefore, even if the whereabouts were exposed, the mission would continue. It would even be accelerated. Qing's guess was correct. Not long after the Kurigakure senior ninja reported the intelligence, The Kurigakure fleet began to speed up. Obviously, they no longer cared whether they would be exposed or not. Now they just wanted to get to the target location as soon as possible and then launch an attack. However, no matter how fast they can't be faster than Qingming. A quarter of an hour later, Qingming returned to the Blackstone base. Without any pause, he immediately rushed to the direction of the conference room. Bang! The door of the conference room was pushed open by Qingming. Several Konoha Jonins on duty inside were startled by the sudden sound and were about to say something. However, when they saw Qingming's extremely serious face, they immediately realized that something was wrong, so they hurriedly said, "What happened, Qingming?" Hearing this, Qingming didn't say any nonsense and said directly, "Immediately notify Captain Sano to come over. The mist ninjas in Fiayu town are preparing to attack by water." What? Several Konoha Jonins heard Qingming's words and stood up one after another, expressing disbelief. But seeing that Qingming didn't look like he was joking at all, they immediately swallowed back the words they were about to say. One of them calmed down and said, "I'll go notify the captain and other Jonin." After that, this person left the conference room without caring about how others reacted. Seeing this, another person also said, "I will go and gather people. The defense force on the east side of the base may not be enough. We must strengthen it as soon as possible." After saying that, he also left. With these two people taking the lead, the others also performed their duties and took action immediately. After a while, Qingming was the only one left in the conference room. Then, the entire Blackstone base became noisy. Obviously, all the ninjas were awakened. Qingming did not leave the conference room. He knew that Nobuhisa would ask him something later, so he stayed here. Sure enough, just a few minutes later, Nobuhisa hurried to the conference room. As soon as he came in, he asked, "Qingming, what is the specific situation in Kurigakure?" Qingming did not hide anything and immediately told everything he saw truthfully. As for the guesses in his heart, there is no need to say. There is no reason why the other party cannot think of what he can think of. So, there is no need to elaborate. Sure enough, after listening to his narration, Nobuhisa immediately said, "It seems that Kurigakure has been prepared for a long time." At this point, he paused, and then continued, "Fortunately, we did not relax our vigilance, otherwise it would be a big trouble." Qingming certainly knew what the other party meant by "did not relax our vigilance." In the past few days, although the Fiayu town stronghold was breached, their Blackstone stronghold shifted the focus of defense to the land. However, similarly, the east side defense line facing the ocean has not been completely withdrawn. In this way, as long as it can be delayed for a while, Nobuhisa can mobilize enough manpower to defend the east side defense line. And this is inseparable from Qingming's credit. If he hadn't brought back the intelligence in advance, Konoha might have been caught off guard, and the situation would be hard to say at that time. And now, although time is still tight, it is enough for Konoha to make some preparations. Just for this item, Qingming didn't know how much loss the stronghold had avoided and how many lives had been saved. Thinking of this, Nobuhisa looked at Qingming with a complicated look. Thinking back to the past 2 days, he was still a little upset because Qingming pretended to be stupid and refused to cooperate with his plan to attract the attention of the mist ninjas in Fiayu town. He never thought that in just 2 days, the other party had made such a great contribution. How embarrassed was he? "Captain," seeing that Nobuhisa had been staring at him without saying a word, Qingming said directly, "Captain, do you have any other instructions?" Oh, hearing Qingming's inquiry, Nobuhisa came back to his senses instantly. He quickly put his mood in order, thought for a while, and said, "Qingming, you don't have to worry about things here. Now, you go back immediately, use the air advantage to monitor the mist ninjas' every move, and be sure to pass their intelligence back in time." Hearing this, Qingming nodded and said, "No problem, let Yamanaka Aoi contact me later." The so-called Yamanaka Aoi is a special jonin in the base. As a ninja of the Yamanaka clan, he is very good at the heart-to-heart technique, which is just right for the current situation. Although Qingming himself has developed the telepathy technique, as long as he leaves a shadow clone, he can communicate with Nobuhisa in real time. However, one should still keep a hand. Anyway, there's ready-made labor in the base, so why should he steal the limelight? Aoi Yamanaka, hearing Qingming's words, Nobuhisa pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay, I understand, you leave as soon as possible." "Yes," Qingming simply responded, and then performed the telepathy technique to leave the meeting room. and then performed the wind style, wind wings again and flew high into the sky. Chapter 406, War begins. Half an hour later. East of the Blackstone Stronghold. Not far from the coastline. Hundreds of Konoha ninjas were divided into 3 parts, forming an arc, hiding behind the bunkers, quietly waiting for the arrival of the enemy. The entire defense line was very quiet. Except for the occasional sound of waves hitting the beach, there was only the subtle breathing of the crowd. In sharp contrast, there was a slightly noisy crowd in the back. These were some middle and lower ninjas. At this time, they were constantly transporting supplies from the stronghold to the outside, such as kunai, shuriken, detonating tags, etc., which could be said to have everything. Obviously, Konoha had also prepared for this battle for a long time. Time passed by minute by minute. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly someone shouted, "Here they come." Hearing this, everyone was startled and immediately became alert, looking at the sea ahead. A warship of the hidden mist sailed out of the bay and came into everyone's sight, followed by the second and third. In the end, more than a dozen warships of the hidden mist appeared on the sea. Immediately, a ninja from the Hyuga clan opened his Byakugan, observed the number and strength of the hidden mist ninjas on the ship, and reported it for reference by Shinobuhisa and others. In the ninja world, although the war between ninjas does not rely on strategy like ordinary people, the importance of intelligence is even greater. However, in this world where great power belongs to oneself, sometimes intelligence is not so important. When you can't fight, you still can't fight. It is for this reason that the war between ninjas is sometimes more like fighting each other. Everyone gathers in groups of 3 or 2, dealing with their own opponents. When the opponent's people are almost dead, the battle will end. It can be said that it is very primitive. However, it is precisely because of the primitiveness that each ninja village can give full play to its strength, so that even if it loses, there is nothing to say. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Standing high in the sky, Qingming looked at the battlefield below quietly. As the warship of Kurigakure approached, at a certain moment, several Konoha Jonin suddenly rushed out of the defense line and came to the sea. Then, they all formed seals and performed the ninjutsu at the same time, water style, explosion. Although the effect of these people's ninjutsu is not as exaggerated as that of Hoshigaki Kisame, due to the limitation of chakra. However, so many people united together, it should not be underestimated. It can be seen that as their ninjutsu was successfully performed, a wave of more than 10 meters high suddenly rose up and rushed towards the direction of the Kurigakure warship at a very fast speed. If it was hit, even if the warship of Kurigakure was strong, it would become a pile of fragments. So would the Kurigakure allow such a thing to happen? The answer is obviously no. Before the wave approached, 3 Kurigakure ninjas jumped off the warship. Then, they all formed seals, squatted down, pressed their palms on the sea, and shouted, "Ice style, ice sealing technique." That's right, these 3 people are not ordinary ninjas, but 3 ninjas of the Snow Clan who inherited the blood limit of ice style. As their ninjutsu was successfully performed, a layer of ice appeared in their palms, and then quickly spread outward, and soon arrived in front of the waves. The moment the 2 sides came into contact, the waves were frozen into ice sculptures and stopped in midair. This is not the end. After freezing the waves, the ice continued to spread and extended all the way to the beach. Taking this opportunity, a large number of mist ninjas jumped off the warships, stepped on the solid ice surface, and rushed straight to the coast. During this period, the Konoha ninjas wanted to stop them, but because of the obstruction of the ice sculpture of the waves that was more than 10 meters high, they had no chance to attack. In this way, the mist ninjas came to a place not far from the beach without any injuries. Standing in the sky, seeing this scene, Qingming couldn't help shaking his head. After all, the time was too short. Although Konoha had mobilized manpower, the preparations were very general. On the contrary, seeing the tacit cooperation of the mist ninjas, it was obvious that they had a plan. In this way, in the first round of confrontation, Konoha fell into a disadvantage. However, this is just the beginning. What happens next depends on the response of both sides. Seeing that the attack did not work and that they failed to seize the initiative, the Konoha Jonin stopped attacking and immediately retreated to the defense line. When the Kurigakure ninja crossed the ice sculpture formed by the waves, someone immediately shouted, "Go!" The next moment, dense kunai flew out from behind the cover, like raindrops, and attacked the Kurigakure ninjas directly. These Kurigakure ninjas were not to be outdone, and immediately threw the kunai in their hands to fight back. Not only that, some of the Kurigakure ninjas also quickly formed hand seals and performed the ninjutsu, water style, water chaos, attacking the Konoha ninjas behind the cover. The status of water style, water chaos in the Kurigakure village is the same as the earth style, Iwatakatsu no jutsu in the Iwatakakure village. As long as you are a Kurigakure ninja and have water attribute chakra, you can basically do it. But similarly, its power is not great, and it can mainly play a harassing role. In fact, this is indeed the case. None of the Konoha ninjas attacked by this technique were injured. The battle continues. After the second round of attacks, the distance between the two sides was shortened again. Some people began to put detonating tags on their ninja tools and then threw them out. This time, the intensity of the battlefield directly rose by more than one level. Many ninjas died or were injured because they failed to dodge in time. For a time, the wailing on the battlefield continued. Stimulated by this, the ninjas on both sides became more brutal. The sound of ninja tools cutting through the air rang out intensively, and detonating tags were detonated one after another, and deafening explosions rang out one after another. Fireballs appeared one after another, and the surrounding air was baked a little hotter. The high temperature, coupled with the shock wave created by the detonating tags, the ice layer created by the three snow clan Jonins on the sea surface began to break. This added some difficulty to the attack of the Mist Ninja. But it was only a little difficulty. The Mist Ninja who could charge in the first echelon was at least a Chunin. Each of them had the ability to walk on water and would not stop moving forward because the ice layer was broken. Therefore, the Mist Ninja finally came to the beach. At this time, the distance between the two sides was less than 10 meters. And this distance, for a ninja, is just a blink of an eye. The next moment, a fierce fight began. One by one, the Mist Ninja rushed into the Konoha position and fought a desperate battle with the Konoha Ninja. At such a close distance, the detonating tag is not easy to use. Not to mention that it is easy to hurt yourself, even if your companions are not careful, they will be hit. Therefore, at this time, it is time to compete with the hard power of both sides. Kill, as a Konoha Jonin shouted, one by one, the Konoha ninjas also jumped out of the bunker, rushed into the Mist Ninja team, and started fighting. For a while, the battlefield was filled with a sound of clanging, and the ninjas on both sides seemed to have lost their minds and killed each other. Chapter 407 Planning and Fighting. In a flash, several hours passed. Time went from early morning to mid-morning. At this time, the battle was still not over. Or rather, it was even more intense. The defense line built by Konoha had long been broken. As the battle progressed, the entire battlefield had spread over several kilometers in radius. Basically, from the east of the Blackstone stronghold to the area 1 or 2 kilometers deep into the sea, it was all battlefields. In this area, the ninjas of both sides either joined forces, or went alone, or ambushed, or fought hard. In short, they were trying every means to put each other to death. Blood was spilled all over the land, and the wailing and fighting sounds were endless. Anyone who came here and saw this scene would not be calm. And this was just a microcosm of the Ninja World War. No, not to mention the entire ninja world, even on the defense line of Konoha, there was more than one place where fighting was taking place at this time. At the same time as the Mist Ninjas in Fiayu Town launched the attack, the other 3 strongholds that had been captured by the Hidden Mist Village before also launched attacks simultaneously. For a time, the 3 defense lines of the north, middle and south of the eastern border of Konoha became tense, and various materials and manpower were constantly mobilized to resist the invasion of Kurigakure. However, even so, the situation is still precarious. As for the reason, it is very simple. Konoha is now in a decisive battle with Sand Village, and there is also Rock Village to contain it. Therefore, even after almost a week, there are still not enough people. In this case, facing the sudden attack of Kurigakure, they naturally have a hard time resisting it because they have no soldiers to use. And this also makes Kurigakure see an opportunity. So, they continue to increase their investment. Now, they not only use 4 strongholds as bridgeheads to expand outward. At the same time, they are also organizing manpower to attack other strongholds on the border of Konoha, in order to contain more of Konoha's troops and prevent them from supporting with peace of mind. It is undeniable that fighting at home does have its advantages, such as simpler material supply. But at the same time, it also has its own shortcomings. Just like now, in order to avoid a massive invasion by the hidden mist village, Naruto, as the commander-in-chief, did not dare to withdraw a large number of personnel from other strongholds on the defense line. Even though he knew that the attack on those strongholds by the hidden mist ninja was just to tie up their energy, he did not dare to do so. Because once these strongholds were vacant, and the hidden mist village got the news, it was very likely that the hidden mist village would have another bridgehead. Therefore, he did not dare to take risks at all. As for hoping to hide it from the hidden mist village and come up with an empty city plan, Naruto had never considered this. It was not that he did not think of this method, but the situation did not allow it. Last time, the hidden mist village was able to capture their 4 strongholds, which obviously had the advantage of accurate intelligence. However, until now, the Anbu still has not figured out how the relevant information was leaked. Therefore, Naruto did not dare to gamble at all. Now, what he can do, and the safest thing, is to compete with the hidden mist village in terms of hard power. As long as he does not play any conspiracy or tricks, the hidden mist village will not be able to find any flaws. This is the confidence of a high IQ clan. As for hard power, indeed, with the ninjas near the 4 strongholds now, plus the ninjas who are about to arrive for support, they are not opponents of the hidden mist village. However, in terms of high-end combat power, the hidden mist village is more than 1 level behind them. In the past week, Naruto did not waste his time in vain. In addition to dispatching troops and preparing supplies, he actually spent the most time contacting the village's top leaders and requesting the assistance of top combat power. And the village also agreed. As long as they can hold on for a while, there will soon be masters to support them. With the support of these people, even if they are defeated, they can still drag the hidden mist village to death. After all, this place is not close to the hidden mist village. As long as they can block the logistics supply channels of the hidden mist village at sea. Then, when the supplies of the hidden mist village are exhausted, they will naturally stop the offensive. As long as this period of time is dragged out, and the result of the decisive battle between the village and the hidden sands village comes out, more troops can be mobilized to come to support. By then, the hidden mist village can be driven back. This is Naruto's plan, that is, to wait for changes. However, Qingming didn't know what Naruto was planning, nor did he care much. He was just playing soy sauce on the battlefield. Of course, it was just playing soy sauce, but with his strength and fame, even if he didn't take the initiative to provoke the Kurigakure would not ignore him. Therefore, he was now besieged by 2 Kurigakure Jonins and 3 special Jonins. Ding ding dang dang. Qingming held a long sword, and the 3 Magatama Sharingan was fully activated to observe the movements of the 2 people in front of him and predict their next move. Then, he swung the longsword in his hand to block the attacks of the 2. The longsword and the kunai collided, making a series of crisp metal collision sounds, and sparks flew everywhere, beautiful and dangerous. Whoosh! Suddenly, a subtle sound of breaking through the air came from behind his head. Qingming's ears moved slightly, and his head suddenly tilted to the left. The next moment, a shuriken flew past his earlobe, leaving a thin blood mark on his ear. But the next moment, the faint blood mark disappeared. For a wound like this, Qingming only needs to mobilize chakra to easily stimulate the body's self-healing ability to recover, without having to perform any medical ninjutsu. However, this is just the beginning. The next moment, the 2 mist ninjas who had just been entangled with him suddenly retreated and pulled a certain distance from him. Seeing this, Qingming took a step to chase. However, at this moment, a dense sound of breaking through the air sounded. Qingming looked back and saw dozens of shurikens and kunai flying at him, attacking his vital parts. In an instant, Qingming pushed his Sharingan to the limit, and the 3 Magatama in his pupils rotated rapidly, locking all the kunai and shurikens in an instant. Then, he kept swinging his sword, accompanied by a series of ding-ding-ding sounds, and all the incoming kunai and shurikens were cut down by him one by one. Just when he was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the 2 mist ninjas who had just retreated behind him suddenly attacked. Water style, water dragon bullet technique. Water style, water fang bullet. In an instant, 2 ninjutsu came straight at him, one attacking from top to bottom, and the other attacking his back. The 2 cooperated very well. Not only that, they also grasped the timing very well, just when he had just dodged a round of attacks, and the old strength had just gone and the new strength had not yet been generated. At this time, even if Qingming could dodge this round of attacks with great effort, he would inevitably lose the initiative and be completely suppressed by them. The two seemed to have foreseen what would happen to Qingming in the future, and their faces showed a look of relief. However, facing such a crisis, Qingming was not in a hurry. Before, the reason why he entangled with the 5 opponents for so long was just because he didn't want to attract too much attention and disturb who's slacking. Now, since he was in danger, it was naturally impossible to hide. With this thought, Qingming put away his sword and made a seal, and in the blink of an eye, he performed the ninjutsu, water style, big same bullet technique. A huge shark missile quickly took shape in front of him, and then rushed straight to the vortex water flow in front. This is the effect of water style, water fang bullet, which is to condense a stream of water, then rotate rapidly, and shoot water guns to attack the target at the same time. To be honest, this ninjutsu is still good. But facing his special ninjutsu water style, big same bullet technique, it has no effect. The moment those water guns attacked the shark, they were all swallowed by it, and then became nutrients for its growth. So, as the shark missile continued to move forward, its size became larger and larger, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Not far away, the mist-hidden ninja faced such a huge monster and finally couldn't hold on. He immediately ended the ninjutsu and rushed to the side. At the same time, on the other side, Qingming no longer paid attention to the attack in front after performing the water style, big same bullet technique. He just kept retreating to avoid the attack of the water style, water dragon bullet technique from above. Boom! The huge water dragon hit the ground, making a loud noise and splashing up billowing smoke and dust. Chapter 408 Injury. Did it succeed? One of the mist-hidden special Jonin asked, looking at the smoke and dust in front of him. Hearing this, the other 4 did not speak, but looked at the place where Qingming stood last with caution. Logically speaking, the place where the water dragon attacked last was almost where Qingming stood. Even if Qingming did not die, he was seriously injured. But the sense of crisis in their hearts told them that everything was not over yet. Whoosh! Suddenly, a meter-long wind blade shot out from the smoke and dust, cutting straight to the waist of the mist-hidden special Jonin, who spoke first, as if to split him in half. Be careful. Next to him, a mist-hidden special Jonin was the first to discover the danger and hurriedly warned. Fortunately, the mist-hidden special Jonin did not relax and dodged to the side as soon as he heard the warning. In the end, the wind blade only passed by his afterimage, leaving a thin and long cut on the ground behind him, and did not hurt him at all. At the same time, the other 3 mist ninjas immediately threw the kunai in their hands in the direction where the wind blade flew. Ding ding ding! 3 crisp metal collision sounds were heard in the smoke and dust. The 3 kunai seemed to be hit by something, flew back and stuck in the ground. Swish swish swish! 5 mist ninjas dispersed and looked at the smoke and dust in front of them vigilantly. Soon, the smoke and dust dispersed, revealing the figure inside. This person was none other than Qingming. At this time, he looked a little embarrassed. His clothes were torn by gravel in many places, and there were some bloodstains on the skin inside. However, overall, there was nothing wrong. Obviously, he avoided the frontal attack of the water dragon. Seeing this, the pupils of several mist ninjas shrank slightly, and without any hesitation, they immediately launched another attack. However, after what happened just now, Qingming had decided to show some strength. After all, he was also a member of Konoha, and he couldn't be too obvious. With this thought, he took the lead in attacking without waiting for the mist ninjas to make any moves. A flash of green light appeared, and Qingming's figure disappeared on the spot. Instant sword technique not good. Seeing this scene, Morishita VII was horrified, and a strong sense of crisis came over him. Almost instinctively, he turned around and raised the kunai in his hand to block it by his side. Ding! The next moment, the kunai and the long sword collided, making a crisp metal collision sound. Huh? Looking at his blocked attack, Qingming was secretly surprised. After a period of fighting in the past, he had already seen that the Morishita VII in front of him was the weakest among the 5 Kurigakure Jonin. That's why, whether it was the previous wind style, wind blade, or the sudden attack this time, he aimed at the opponent. Unexpectedly, he reacted both times. Sure enough, ninjas who can become Jonin, even if they are just special Jonin, are all very capable, and their strength is much stronger than that of ordinary Chunin. Just with his current sword, 90% of Chunin can't block it, and if they encounter it, they will basically be killed in one blow. Shaking his head, Qingming stopped thinking about it. Dodging the shuriken attacks of the other 4 mist ninjas, Qingming used the instant sword technique again and came to the other side of Morishita's seventh. A flash of cold light flashed, and Qingming swung the long sword in his hand and chopped directly at the opponent's neck. Sensing the danger, Morishita's seventh quickly ducked and avoided the attack. Seeing this, Qingming did not hesitate at all, and immediately turned his wrist, and the long sword suddenly changed direction, from horizontal slash to downward slash. The blade wrapped in wind chakra slanted downward, and before it touched Morishita's seventh, he felt a little pain. Glancing at the corner of his eye, he saw that the shoulder near the blade had been torn open by the overflowing wind chakra, and blood was dripping inside. Obviously, he was injured. Enduring the pain and inner fear, Morishita's seventh formed seals with both hands, and performed the ninjutsu, water substitute at the fastest speed in his life. Puff Qingming's long sword chopped Morishita's seventh, and his body suddenly turned into a puddle of water. Qingming's eyes did not linger on it for a moment, and before he put away the sword, he looked to a place not far away. At this time, Morishita's seventh had just stopped running. Opportunity. Qingming's eyes lit up slightly. Without any hesitation, he immediately raised his left hand, completed the seal in an instant, and performed a ninjutsu with one hand, fire style, great fireball technique. The next moment, a huge fireball flew out and hit Morishita's seventh's body. A painful wail sounded. Morishita's seventh was hit by the fireball and instantly turned into a fireman, wailing non-stop. Seventh, seeing this scene, a special Jonin of Kirigakure spoke anxiously. While shouting, she formed a seal and opened her mouth to perform a water-style ninjutsu, trying to extinguish the flames on Morishita's seventh. At the same time, the other three Jonins of Kirigakure seized the opportunity of Qingming to perform the ninjutsu and also attacked him. One of them took out a kunai with an explosive tag from his ninja tool bag and threw it at Qingming. The other two formed seals at the same time, and performed a water-style ninjutsu and a lightning-style ninjutsu respectively, forming a joint ninjutsu and attacking Qingming. Qingming saw the explosive tag on the incoming kunai with his Sharingan slightly turning, so he immediately gave up the idea of blocking it and dodged to the side with his sword. However, as soon as his feet landed on the ground, a water column wrapped with lightning and thunder attacked him. It was the joint ninjutsu. Qingming had no choice but to perform the instant body technique again and hide further away. However, in order to kill Morishita's seven, he wasted some time. Therefore, although he dodged in time and avoided the first kunai attack of the mist ninja, he could not avoid a joint ninjutsu of the subsequent two mist ninjas. His water column hit the ground and instantly turned into a layer of water film, spreading to all directions at an extremely fast speed. After performing the instant body technique, his speed was very fast, but it was not faster than the speed of the opponent's ninjutsu. Looking at the water stains under his feet, Qingming secretly said not good, and planned to jump up and get away from the water film on the ground. However, it was too late. Almost at the moment he touched the water film, a lightning bolt followed the water flow on the ground, crackling. Zilla, a sharp electric current sound rang out. Qingming only felt his legs numb, and he froze in place. Seeing this scene, the eyes of the mist-hidden ninja who threw the kunai before lit up, and he keenly realized that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Therefore, without any hesitation, he immediately took out 3 shurikens from the ninja tool bag and threw them out. Swish, 3 shurikens flew out at an extremely fast speed, aiming directly at Qingming's throat, heart and lower abdomen. Qingming's Sharingan spun rapidly, instantly locking onto the incoming shuriken. After confirming that there were no hidden traps on it, he immediately gave up the idea of using a bin move. He twisted his body slightly and avoided his vital points. The shuriken shot at his throat was dodged by him. The shuriken shot at his heart did not hit his heart, but only grazed his left arm and flew away, leaving a deep scar on it. As for the shuriken shot at his lower abdomen, although it hit his abdomen, it did not hurt the vital organs. Therefore, there was no big problem. However, if he continued to stay here and be a target for the other party, it would be a big problem. We must leave as soon as possible. With this thought, Qingming immediately endured the pain in his body, raised his hand to seal, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wings of wind. Chapter 409 Uninvited Guests. Swish, a pair of light blue chakra wings spread out behind him. Qingming moved his mind and controlled the wings to fly high into the sky. Seeing that he was about to get out of the attack range, the 2 mist-hidden ninjas who were just performing ninjutsu stopped the technique immediately. Then, They each took out several shurikens from their ninja tool bags and shot them at Qingming in the air. It can be seen that the attack angles of these shurikens were very tricky, basically blocking all his evasive space. However, Qingming didn't even think about dodging. Almost at the moment when those shurikens were shot, Qingming locked their flight trajectory. Then, there was a clang sound, and the long sword was pulled out of the scabbard at his waist. Swish swish swish, the long sword flew. After a burst of ding 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 sounds, all the shurikens shot at him were cut down one by one. Seeing this scene, the two mist-hidden ninjas felt sorry, but they were not very disappointed. After all, with the superb swordsmanship that Qingming had shown before, combined with the 3 Magatama Sharingan, it was not difficult to do this. And they did not expect that a few shurikens could kill Qingming. They did this for only one purpose, which was to slow down Qingming's flying speed so as to buy time for their companions. The next moment, they heard two people shouting at the same time, shimmery. Almost at the moment when their voices fell, a gentle and graceful voice appeared, like a song, and like someone's mumbling in a dream. As soon as it appeared, it was accurately transmitted into Qingming's ears and went straight into the depths of his brain, making him involuntarily have the idea of wanting to have a good sleep. Hypnosis? Illusion. Qingming's heart moved slightly, and the huge mental energy was mobilized by him, easily dispelling the mental power and chakra that invaded his mind. Below, the illusion was broken, and Kimura Shimei, who stood beside Morishita 7, groaned. That's right, the attack Qingming encountered just now was indeed an illusion, and it was launched by the mist ninja who rushed to rescue Morishita 7 first. Before, Qingming only thought that the other party cared about his companions. Now it seems that there is more or less a deliberate element. What he did was probably to fill in the gaps. This is not Qingming's conspiracy theory, but the other party has not shown any illusion methods in the past period of confrontation. However, judging from the timing of her illusion just now and her proficiency in illusion, she is obviously very good at it. So why didn't she use it for a while? There is only one answer, that is, hiding her strength and waiting for an opportunity to give him a fatal blow. Unfortunately, the other party's tricks were all calculated, but in the end they could not resist his strong strength. Indeed, based on his past record, the other party chose the most effective sound wave illusion to deal with him. But under his huge mental power, this level of illusion is not vulnerable at all. It's just that Qingming has not yet learned the exclusive illusion of the Sharingan magic mirror heaven and earth rotation, otherwise with his current pupil power, he can easily bounce back the opponent's illusion. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming looked down at the ground. At this time, the other 3 mist ninjas barely raised their hands to form seals. However, it was too late. Breaking free from the influence of the illusion, Qingming flew high into the sky in the first place, completely out of the opponent's attack range. Seeing this scene, Zhengjin Runai couldn't help but stop forming seals and murmured, "How is it possible?" Qingming's speed of breaking free from the illusion was beyond their imagination. This made their original plan aborted. Zhengjin Runai, who was in a bad mood, immediately cast his eyes on Jinpu Zimei, as if asking, why did the other party get rid of the influence of the illusion so quickly? In the past, they had targeted the ninjas of the Uchiha clan. Even if it was a 3 Magatama Sharingan, it would take a few seconds to get rid of the influence of the illusion, phantom sound. And this time was enough for them to continue to control. But this time? Before they could make a move, the other party regained his freedom. All kinds of calculations. Once they failed, how could he not be angry? If he hadn't known that Kimura wouldn't betray him, he would have thought that the other party had let him go. Facing Masujinichi's questioning gaze, Kimura explained, his mental power is too strong, far beyond the reach of ordinary Uchiha Jonin. I can't affect him. Hearing this, Masujinichi's face was gloomy, and he didn't say a word. He looked up at Qingming again, and his face became even uglier when he saw the figure standing tall above him. This time, the task of the 5 of them was to entangle Qingming. But now, Qingming has left their attack range. As long as the other party doesn't want to, it is basically impossible for them to entangle the other party. In other words, their mission is likely to fail. Damn it, Masujinichi cursed in a low voice, and casually threw a kunai and shot it at Qingming. However, from a low point to a high point, the distance is still so far, and the flying speed of the kunai is getting slower and slower. How could it hit Qingming? He just flapped his wings lightly to avoid the attack. However, Qingming did not immediately launch a counterattack. Instead, he flew up 10 meters again. After confirming that he was safe enough, he raised his hand to seal and performed the ninjutsu, palm immortal technique. A ball of rich yang escape chakra appeared and was hit directly into the wound on the abdomen. Although the place where the shuriken hit was not fatal, it was the abdomen after all. Even if he tried his best to control it, he still lost a lot of blood. Therefore, it must be treated as soon as possible. As for the wound on the left arm, Qingming only mobilized some chakra to stimulate the body's self-healing ability and ignored it. After doing this, he turned his attention back to the 4 mist ninjas below. Seeing that they had not left yet, he planned to formally launch a counterattack. However, at this moment, his peripheral vision suddenly found a team in the distance. What is this? Qingming turned his head and looked to the south. He saw that a team of 200 to 300 people was approaching rapidly, a few kilometers away from the Blackstone stronghold. I don't know what he thought of. Qingming decisively gave up targeting the several mist-hidden ninjas below, and instead flapped his wings to fly in the direction of the figure attacking over there. At a speed of 40 meters per second, in less than 2 minutes, he arrived above the team. The next moment, he saw the identity of the people coming. It's the mist ninja. Qingming looked at the people below and whispered. In fact, when he saw the direction these people were running from, he guessed their identities. Because only the mist ninja of Fiayu Town would approach the Blackstone stronghold from the south. If it was Konoha's own support troops, they would only approach from the west or north, which is closer to the heart of the Land of Fire. I just don't know why the other party came at this time. Qingming was puzzled, but he didn't think much about it. The most urgent thing was to pass the news to the stronghold as soon as possible. As for the rest, he would talk about it later. Chapter 410 Harassment. Having made up his mind, Qingming did not delay any longer. He immediately raised his hand to seal and performed the ninjutsu, the heart-to-heart technique. Although it is said that people should keep a hand in mind, this is obviously not the time to hide it. It is true that at his current speed, it only takes less than 2 minutes to fly back to the base, but the team of mist ninja below is not far from the base. At such a distance, 2 minutes is enough to affect many things. Therefore, after a little thought, he decided to expose the heart-to-heart technique. Of course, it was also because his heart-to-heart technique had been promoted to level 3 after 2 days of practice, and he could freely communicate with people except his shadow clone within a range of 5 kilometers, so he could do this. Otherwise, even if he wanted to expose it, he would not have the opportunity. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind, and Qingming contacted SYNOPSIS. Qingming, SYNOPSIS hesitated to speak. Obviously, he did not expect Qingming to know the secret technique of the Yamanaka clan. Qingming did not explain this, but just said, a team of mist ninjas came from the south of the base, with a number of about. Qingming glanced at the mist ninjas below again, roughly counted them, and continued, the number is about 260. Hearing Qingming's words, SYNOPSIS no longer entangled in how Qingming suddenly knew the mind communication technique, but immediately asked, how strong are the enemies? Where are they exactly? Hearing this, Qingming stared at the mist ninjas below with his Sharingan, and after a long while, he said, there are about 10 Junin, 170 Chunin, and the rest are Jinan. As for the location, it is now about 4 kilometers away from the base. 4 kilometers. SYNOPSIS pondered for a moment, paused for a moment, and then directly ordered, Qingming, delay their actions as much as possible. I will send people to support them immediately. Sure enough, Qingming knew that as long as he did not return to the base, he would inevitably be asked to stop the enemy next. Even if he just flew back, he would be asked to fly back again and continue to perform the task of blocking the enemy's advance. After all, he, who has mastered the ability to fly, is the most suitable for this task in every aspect. He did not fly back to the base to send a message, and this was also his consideration. Fortunately, as he just reported, the overall strength of the mist ninja below is not exaggerated, and it is still within his ability to deal with. Therefore, he did not refuse and agreed without hesitation. After breaking the contact, Qingming concentrated his mind and focused all his attention on the mist ninja below. At this time, these mist ninjas had already discovered him. Unfortunately, he flew too high, and the attacks of these mist ninjas could not reach him at all. Therefore, no one attacked him for the time being. Qingming looked at the mist ninja team below, and the forward speed slowed down. Several mist ninjas gathered together, talking and looking at him. Qingming knew without thinking that they were discussing how to deal with him. However, Qingming was not worried. As long as he did not lower the altitude, no matter how much the other party discussed, there was nothing he could do. This is the trick of flying ninjutsu. However, what he didn't expect was that after a brief discussion, these mist-hidden ninjas ignored his presence and continued to lead the team forward. Therefore, the speed that had just descended increased again. Seeing this scene, Qingming frowned slightly. The opponent had given him a difficult problem. Indeed, he was flying high in the sky, and the opponent could not attack him, so his safety was guaranteed. But at the same time, this height, with a few ninjutsu he currently mastered, could not affect the opponent. In this way, the opponent could completely ignore his threat and continue to move forward. On the contrary, once he chose to lower the altitude, then there was no doubt that he would be greeted by countless attacks. At that time, the risk he had to bear would inevitably increase greatly. After following the opponent for several hundred meters, Qingming finally sighed and said, "Forget it, sooner or later I have to go through this, so let's do it now." Thinking of this in his heart, Qingming's face became serious, and he found the place where the mist ninjas were most densely populated, and gently flapped his chakra wings behind him. Then, the whole person dived down like a cannonball. As expected, seeing him do this, a mist ninja immediately ordered the team to stop and prepare to launch an attack. The distance between the two sides was getting closer and closer, and Qingming was about to enter the opponent's attack range. However, at this moment, he suddenly pulled up quickly. The whole person's flight trajectory drew a beautiful U-shape in the air. Indeed, Qingming intended to take the initiative to attack, but this did not mean that he wanted to fight head-on. Anyway, he had absolute initiative and could harass frequently and play the trick of crying wolf. As long as he could achieve the purpose of slowing down the opponent's forward speed, it didn't matter whether he took action or not. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Seeing that Qingming was out of the attack range again, some mist ninjas were unwilling to give up, so they threw the kunai in their hands. Unfortunately, Qingming's flying speed was too fast and too flexible, and those kunai couldn't even get close to him. After flying high again, Qingming did not immediately carry out the second round of dives, but hovered in the sky, quietly observing the reactions of the mist ninjas below. Below, the mist ninjas stayed for a moment, but could not do anything to Qingming, so they could only move forward again. However, before they had walked far, Qingming once again lowered his altitude and made a gesture of launching an attack. Seeing this, the mist ninjas did not dare to gamble and could only stop again to defend. Unfortunately, this time, Qingming still made a feint, and after descending to the critical height, he flew up again. Suddenly, the mist ninja team below was in a commotion. Returning to the high altitude, with the help of the Sharingan, seeing this scene, Qingming nodded with satisfaction. This was the effect he wanted. Suddenly, Qingming found that the mist ninjas gathered together again. I don't know what they discussed, but in less than a minute, they separated again. Then, they each took half of the team and ran in the east and west directions. What are they doing? Qingming looked at their actions, and was confused. But soon, he understood what these people were thinking. I saw that after these mist ninjas separated for about 100 meters, they stopped moving forward, and then turned again and continued to run in the direction of the Blackstone stronghold. Obviously, they wanted to share the risk. By splitting one team into two, no matter which one he attacks, the other team can continue to move forward. In this way, at least half of the personnel can be guaranteed to arrive at the target location on time. At the same time, because the two teams are not far apart, if one team can really entangle him, then the other team can quickly support him. Similarly, if one team is defeated, the other team can also decide whether to provide assistance depending on the situation. It can be said that all aspects have been taken into consideration. And even Qingming has to admire them for being able to think of such a solution in such a short time. Unfortunately, no matter how ingenious the plan is, it is vain in the face of absolute strength. With a murmur, Qingming flapped his wings behind him and swooped straight towards the team in the east. Chapter 411 Blockade. Everyone, be on guard. Below, in the Kurigakure team on the east side, a Kurigakure Junin saw Qingming rushing towards their team and shouted loudly. All of a sudden, all of the Kurigakure ninjas stopped, raised the kunai in their hands, and rushed towards Qingming. Looking at those pairs of eyes staring straight at him, Qingming's expression was not moved at all, and he just broke into their attack range. Fire! The next moment, a high-pitched voice came from the Kurigakure team. Hearing this, all of the Kurigakure ninjas divided into 3 batches and threw the kunai in their hands. In an instant, The dense kunai rushed towards Qingming's face like upside-down raindrops. Qingming's Sharingan rotated rapidly, and his nerve reaction speed increased to the limit, watching the flight trajectory of each kunai. Then, the chakra wings behind him kept shaking, and then the whole person was like a butterfly flying through flowers, lightly dodging the first round of attacks. However, when the second round of attacks came, it was a little difficult. It was because these people had more time to prepare, so they aimed more accurately. Therefore, he needed to spend more energy to deal with them. He could still withstand the first 2 rounds of attacks, but he couldn't withstand the third round of attacks. These people had more time to prepare, and each of them threw more kunai, and they aimed more accurately, and they also carried some detonating tags. Qingming looked at the detonating tags tied to the kunai and burning, and without any hesitation, he immediately turned around and drew a V in the air, moving away from the Mist Ninja team again. The kunai thrown by these Mist Ninjas were originally working against gravity, and now they were farther away from Qingming, so they naturally couldn't keep up with his speed. Boom boom boom, detonating tags were detonated in the air, making a deafening sound, and a large number of fireballs appeared in the air, burning the surrounding air and distorting it. Qingming avoided the impact of the heat wave, drew an arc in the air, and dived towards these Mist Ninjas again from another direction. Keep attacking. The Mist Ninja below saw this and gave another command. After receiving the order, the Mist Ninjas launched a 3-stage attack in an orderly manner, just like last time. No, this time it should be 4 stages. Because after those kunai attacks, some Mist Ninjas still completed the seals and used various ninjutsu against him. Unfortunately, Qingming had an absolute geographical advantage, and he could see the movements of these people clearly. Therefore, before they could release their ninjutsu, he had already pulled away. For a while, all these people did useless work. At the same time, another Mist Ninja team in the west looked over here, and after confirming that the Mist Ninjas here could not trap Qingming, they did not delay anymore and began to move forward at full speed. And Qingming also hid and looked over there. Time continued to pass, and Qingming launched a third dive, while making full attack postures. The Mist Ninjas below did not dare to gamble, and could only continue to throw kunai to respond. Qingming continued to play the trick of crying wolf. After 5 times, when the Mist Ninja team to the west was several hundred meters away, he finally stopped faking and launched a real attack. Looking at Qingming, who was leaning over and rushing again, the Mist Ninjas below finally stopped moving in unison. The repeated harassment had inevitably caused some people to hesitate in their hearts. And it was these hesitations that allowed Qingming to seize the opportunity. After dodging the first round of kunai attacks, Qingming did not hesitate at all and immediately took out several kunai with detonating tags from his ninja bag. Then, he aimed at the Sharingan and threw them out. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Because of the high position, the speed of these kunai did not slow down at all after they were released, but increased a lot. And this also made the kunai he threw out even more difficult to intercept. Not to mention the Sharingan who were used as targets, they had no intention of intercepting at all, and even the nearby Chunin felt very difficult. In the end, it was still a few Jonin who took action and intercepted the kunai. However, although they were intercepted, they still had to explode. There was a loud boom and the detonating tags wrapped on several kunai exploded. Because the distance was too close, everyone felt a rolling heat wave coming, and it was difficult to breathe. Coupled with this subsequent shock wave, the entire formation unconsciously became a little scattered. Seeing this scene, Qingming's eyes lit up slightly. Without any pause, he flapped his wings again, and the whole person flew out in an arc, once again bringing the Mist Ninja into the attack range. Fire style, great fireball technique. Qingming quickly formed seals with both hands, opened his mouth, consumed a lot of chakra, and performed this technique. A fireball with a diameter of more than 10 meters was seen spit out from his mouth, and then it hit the Mist Ninja team below like a meteorite. Water style, water dragon bullet technique. X3 below, the 3 Mist Ninjas saw him perform the ninjutsu, without any hesitation, and immediately formed seals together and performed this water style ninjutsu at the same time. The next moment, 3 giant water dragons soared into the sky, like 3 dragons playing with a pearl, biting at a huge fireball in the air at the same time. As soon as the 2 sides came into contact, there was a sizzling sound of water evaporation. In the blink of an eye, the surrounding space was covered by the white mist formed by water vapor, and everyone's vision was greatly restricted. Seeing this, several mist-hidden ninjas were not surprised but happy. There was no other reason, such an environment was more conducive to their performance. Just as they were about to gather people and make a new plan, a strong wind suddenly hit. What is this? Not good. Recalling the relevant information about Qingming, several mist hidden ninjas' expressions suddenly changed, and they immediately shouted loudly, "Everyone, be careful to defend." However, his reminder was still a step too late. Before he could finish his words, the strong wind blew away the surrounding water vapor and continued to blow towards them. For a while, everyone was unstable and was blown to the ground. When the strong wind stopped, the entire formation of the mist-hidden ninja was disrupted. Damn it! Seeing this scene, a mist-hidden ninja couldn't help but curse out loud. However, at this moment, a strong sense of crisis came over him. He didn't have time to think. Almost instinctively, he pounced on the ground in front of him like a dog eating shit. The next moment, a slight sound of air tearing was heard. He looked back and saw a long and thin crack appeared where he was standing. Both sides of it were as smooth as a mirror. It was obviously cut in half by something. Ueda Kyochi's heart was pounding. He had a premonition that if he had been a little late just now, he would have been cut in half in an instant like the ground. This made him feel a little scared. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 412, All-Out Attack. Huh? In the sky. Qingming couldn't help but sigh when he saw the other party dodge his wind blade. You know, his move was to seize the opportunity and go at him. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have dodged it. However, ninjas can't think according to common sense. What they have to do is often to make the impossible possible. So, it's nothing for the other party to dodge his attack. Anyway, he doesn't have to kill the other party, so it's okay if he dodges it. Next, as long as other people don't dodge his attack like him, it's fine. With this thought, Qingming aimed at another mist-hidden ninja, formed a seal again, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. This technique has long been perfected by him, and the wind blade released is more than a point stronger in terms of flying speed and concealment. Therefore, when the mist-hidden ninja sensed the danger, it was too late. Swish! The sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood rang out. The mist-hidden ninja was instantly cut into two pieces from the waist by the wind blade, wailing non-stop. Seeing his miserable state, the other mist ninjas were terrified and immediately became alert. But Qingming didn't care about their reactions. After the first attack, he didn't pause at all and immediately released the second wind blade. This time, the one who was hit was a mist-hidden ninja. Although he was alert and dodged immediately after finding that Qingming attacked him, he was still cut off one of his right legs by the wind blade. With such an injury, it is obvious that he has no fighting power. Not only that, he also needs the care of his companions. In this one, the mist-hidden ninja lost at least 2 combat forces. Damn it, fight back, a mist-hidden ninja shouted loudly in the team below. Hearing this, the mist-hidden ninjas attacked one after another, throwing kunai and shuriken, or performing ninjutsu and jinjutsu, but no matter what kind of attack, they couldn't do anything to Qingming. Mastering the flying ninjutsu, he was in the air, just like a fish in water, extremely flexible, and it was not something that the mist-hidden ninjas could attack. Not only that, he also took the opportunity to perform ninjutsu and killed several mist ninjas. Although these casualties were nothing to the mist ninja team of more than 100 people, the blow to morale could not be ignored. Think about it, the enemy can attack you at will, but you can't attack the other party. How can this not make people feel desperate? Fortunately, Qingming's attack did not last long. After a fierce bombardment, the formation of the mist ninjas was completely broken up, and he flew away from these people. He left, someone in the mist ninja team shouted, and everyone was excited. Although they didn't say it, it was undeniable that they had actually developed a fear of Qingming in their hearts, and they wanted him to leave immediately. And now, Qingming really left, how could they not be happy? However, unlike the excitement of ordinary mist ninjas, the faces of the mist ninjas were quite ugly. There was no other reason. Looking at the direction where Qingming left, it was the direction where another team left. Without thinking, they could guess Qingming's purpose. Therefore, after they looked at each other, they immediately reorganized their forces and prepared to catch up without any hesitation. This mission was personally ordered by the captain, and they must complete it. On the other side, The Mist Ninja team finally ran 2 or 3 kilometers away, and was about to approach the Blackstone stronghold and reach the destination, when Qingming's figure suddenly appeared. "Be careful," a mist hidden ninja found Qingming's trace and immediately warned. At the same time, he threw the kunai in his hand and attacked Qingming. That's right, Qingming came here this time, flying directly at the opponent's attack height. Therefore, in theory, the opponent can attack him. But this is just a theory. If you want to hide him in this way, it is undoubtedly a fool's dream. Qingming just flapped his wings behind him lightly, and he dodged the attack of the kunai. Then, without any hesitation, he immediately raised his hand to form a seal and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, great breakthrough. No matter when, this technique is best used to disrupt the formation. This is especially true when his chakra is very huge and can be squandered at will. A gust of wind blew out of his mouth, driving the surrounding air, spinning rapidly, and turned into a rapidly expanding tornado, blowing towards the mist ninjas. Faced with such an attack, even if several mist ninjas mastered several defensive ninjutsu, they had no way to stop it and could only choose to evade. Disperse. Under the order of a mist ninja, the mist ninjas immediately dispersed in groups to resist Qingming's wind escape attack. After all, they were not caught off guard like the previous team of mist ninjas. Therefore, even after dispersing, they still maintained the most basic formation, which added some difficulty to Qingming's subsequent attacks. But it was only some difficulty. When he decided to go all out, the mere 100 or so mist ninjas could no longer pose enough threat to him. Qingming no longer hesitated, and flapped his chakra wings behind him vigorously, and his entire speed suddenly increased to the maximum, and he approached the mist ninjas directly. Attack! Attack now! Seeing him do this, a mist hidden ninja in the team immediately shouted loudly. The next moment, dense kunai and shurikens flew out and attacked Qingming directly. Qingming raised the effect of the 3 Magatama Sharingan to the limit, carefully distinguishing the incoming kunai and shurikens. If he could dodge them, he would dodge them directly. If he couldn't dodge them, he would immediately wave the kunai in his hand to block them. As for those ninja tools mixed with detonating tags, he threw shurikens and shot them down one by one. Boom boom boom, violent explosions sounded one after another, and fireballs appeared in the air one by one. Qingming tried his best to resist the high temperature it emitted. At the same time, with his superb flying skills, he avoided round after round of shock waves. He even used this power to fly faster. Almost in the blink of an eye, Qingming came close to everyone. Then, without any hesitation, he immediately raised his hand to form a seal and performed the ninjutsu, fire style, phoenix fire technique. In an instant, dozens of fireballs were spit out by him, and then scattered and attacked a group of mist ninjas. Most of them missed, and only a few hit the mist ninjas who were unable to dodge. Qingming was quite satisfied with this result. After all, his first goal of performing this technique was not to kill people, but to force them to move, so as to further disrupt their formation. Now, his goal has basically been achieved. Looking at the crowd below who were scattered again because of the attack of dense fireballs, Qingming immediately activated the wind style, wind wings. The next moment, his figure drew an arc in the air and approached some of the mist ninjas. This time, no one was in overall command. Qingming easily approached the opponent, and then formed a seal again, and performed another ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. This time, he was rushing to kill people. Only in this way can they be more panicked. In this way, his safety can be guaranteed, and he will have more opportunities. Chapter 413 Support. Swoosh! A giant wind blade more than 10 meters long flew by. Below, several mist ninjas gathered together and panicked. Some wanted to seal and perform ninjutsu to resist, while others ran away. However, the speed of the wind blade was too fast. No matter they tried to seal and resist, or escaped and dodged it the first time, they failed. Sizzle! The sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood sounded. The front mist hidden ninja was directly cut in half by the wind blade, and his intestines and internal organs flowed all over the ground. Then, the wind blade continued to move, cutting off the left arm of a mist hidden ninja and half of the shoulder of another mist hidden ninja. At the same time, it also left a deep scar on the fourth mist ninja. It can be said that Qingming's wind blade almost destroyed most of the combat power of this small group of mist ninjas. Qingming glanced at the two survivors, without any pause, and flew directly over their heads, then turned 90 degrees and flew towards the other mist ninjas. Seeing Qingming coming, The mist ninjas who had gathered together immediately dispersed, obviously afraid of being caught by Qingming. Not only that, they also threw the kunai in their hands, trying to force Qingming to leave. Unfortunately, Qingming was not afraid of their threats at all, and just twisted his body to avoid their attacks. Then, before they launched a second attack, he took the lead in performing the ninjutsu, fire style dragon fire style. He quickly formed a seal, and after approaching, he opened his mouth and spit out a line of fire. This line of fire turned into a fire dragon in the air and rushed directly to the two mist ninjas in front and behind. In terms of the several fire style ninjutsu he mastered, this dragon fire style had the fastest attack speed and was also very powerful. Therefore, he directly performed it. The mist ninja in front reacted quickly and avoided the frontal attack of the fire dragon. He was only slightly touched and his right arm was burned. The Sharingan behind him didn't have such good luck. He was hit by the fire dragon halfway through his body. With a bang, he turned into a fireman. A shrill scream sounded. Several nearby Sharingan ninjas all felt a chill in their hearts when they heard this sound. However, Qingming didn't care about that. After a round of attacks, he formed a seal again and performed a ninjutsu, fire style, phoenix fire technique. In an instant, dozens or even hundreds of fireballs were spit out by him, like the seeds of the phoenix flower, floating in the wind and surrounding the remaining few people. Water style, water array wall water style, water chaos in the crowd. Two Sharingan completed the seals one after another and performed these two ninjutsu, either passively or actively, blocking most of the fireballs. In this way, the encirclement formed by the fireballs had a flaw. Therefore, the few remaining Sharingan ninjas all rushed out from these two places and avoided the attack. Seeing this, Qingming was about to launch the third round of attack. However, at this moment, several shurikens flew at him rapidly. Unlike the shurikens thrown by the middle and lower ninjas, these shurikens were obviously faster and the attack angles were more tricky. In mid-air, Qingming suddenly stopped, then took out a kunai and swung it quickly. Ding 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 with a crisp sound of metal collision. All the shurikens shot at him were cut down one by one. At this moment, 5 mist-hidden ninjas came close to him. Qingming looked at the 5 people who came together and approached, and did not intend to pay attention to them. His goal was to stop the enemy, not to fight to the death with the enemy. It is true that among these 5 people, only 2 are real Jonins, and the other 3 are only special Jonins. Their overall strength is not strong. He may not be able to take down a few people with some effort, but this is not necessary at all. Compared with fighting these 5 people to death, he would rather attack other mist ninjas. This way, it is not only easier and faster, but also safer. With this thought, Qingming was about to flap his wings and fly away. However, he wanted to leave, but others were unwilling to let him leave so easily. Just as he turned around, dozens of kunai flew over. After he dodged the attack of these kunai, several water arrows formed by water flow shot over again. Qingming looked carefully and found that 2 mist-hidden ninjas had completed the seal and performed some kind of water escape ninjutsu while he was dodging the kunai attack. Looking at the water arrows coming towards him, Qingming frowned slightly, then raised his hand to seal, and instantly performed the ninjutsu, fire escape, dragon fire jutsu. Roar! The fire dragon roared, pounced out in an instant, and hit the water arrows. In the blink of an eye, it smashed them all. However, this was just the beginning. Before the fire dragon in the air dissipated, 2 more ninjutsu came towards him. One of them was very familiar to Qingming. It was the water escape, water dragon bullet jutsu, and the other was a rare wind escape ninjutsu. Qingming dodged the attack of the water style, water dragon bullet technique, and then saw dense air masses of vacuum air shooting straight at him like bullets. These air bullets are not only very concealed, but also very fast. Only because Qingming has the Sharingan, he can see these attacks clearly, and with the flexibility of the wind style, wind wings, he was able to dodge the attack. Otherwise, it's hard to say. However, this delay also gave other mist ninjas time to gather. It was seen that the mist ninjas who were scattered around before quickly gathered together when he was entangled by the 5 mist-hidden ninjas. At this time, whether it was attack or defense, they were much stronger than the previous scattered sand. It must be said that the quality of these attacking mist ninjas is really good. Being able to gather together as a whole in such a short time is not something that any team can do. However, this is useless. Qingming can disperse them once, and he can disperse them twice. After getting rid of the entanglement of several mist ninjas, Qingming flew straight up to the sky, then turned around and planned to dive again to attack the mist ninjas again. But at this moment, he saw the trace of another mist ninja in the distance to the south. Obviously, that mist ninja team also completed the formation adjustment and rushed over again. And according to their current speed, it is estimated that it will take less than a minute to meet up with the mist ninja team below. By then, it will be much more difficult to deal with. However, Qingming was not too worried. Because on the other side, the support team belonging to Konoha also set off. Standing in the sky, Qingming can easily see the overall situation. At this time, he saw a team of about 150 people, starting from the south gate of the Blackstone stronghold and rushing here. Obviously, after a few minutes of preparation, Nobuhisa has already drawn out people to support him. But only 150 people. Qingming frowned slightly when he saw the number of supporters. You know, even after what he just consumed, the total combat power of the mist ninja below is still about 250 people. This is a full 100 more than the support from Konoha. Such a difference in numbers is already very large. Unless he attacks with all his strength, it is impossible to stop the attacking mist ninja. And just as he was thinking about this, a chakra wrapped in mental power broke into his mind. Then, the voice of Yamanaka Aoi sounded. Qingming Junin, the support troops have set off. Captain Sano asked you to assist the support troops and keep the attacking mist ninja outside the base. Only 150 people. Hearing what Yamanaka Aoi said, Qingming asked directly in his mind. Hearing this, Yamanaka Aoi was obviously stunned for a moment, as if he didn't understand why Qingming knew the number of the support troops at the first time, and he hadn't said it yet. However, when he thought of Qingming's flying ability, he suddenly realized it. Then he said, yes, Qingming Junin, these are the only people we can squeeze out of the base now, please keep the enemy out. Qingming recalled the situation in the base, and then looked at the battlefield in the distance, and felt that it was about the same. It seems that I am really destined to be a hard worker. Thinking of this, Qingming sighed secretly. Originally, he was ready to slack off in this war, but in the end, he still had to take action. Sure enough, excellent people can never hide their brilliance at any time. Comforting himself, Qingming no longer thought about it, and directly replied, okay, I know, you ask them to come as soon as possible. Yes, Qingming Junin, Yamanaka Aoi replied in his mind. After saying that, he lifted the mind-connecting technique. Qingming did not rush to attack the mist ninja, but carefully pondered the other party's use of the mind-connecting technique just now. Although he was just a receiving end, it was enough for him to analyze a lot of information, especially since he had already developed a similar ninjutsu based on it. Unconsciously, Qingming felt that his understanding of the mind communication technique had improved a bit. Then, he opened the panel and took a look. Sure enough, his proficiency increased by dozens of points, saving 3,000 or 4,000 chakra points. If we add the several calls between the two before the mist ninja's attack, Yamanaka Aoi alone saved him at least more than 10,000 chakra points. Although 10,000 chakra points are nothing to him now, a mosquito leg is still meat, and Qingming doesn't mind taking a little wool from it. Chapter 414, Reconciliation. All kinds of thoughts flashed through his mind. Qingming shook his head and stopped thinking about it. He turned to look at the mist ninja below. At this time, the distance between the two teams of mist ninja was less than 100 meters. Qingming thought about it and decided not to pay attention to the mist ninja below. Instead, he turned around and flew to the mist ninja team that had just arrived from behind. As for the mist ninja below, if they caught up, he would hold the two teams back. If they ignored it and continued to act according to the previous plan, it would be just right to hand it over to the Konoha ninjas who came to support from the base. It just so happened that if they only dealt with half of the people, the difference in manpower between the two sides was not big, so they could create a fair duel environment. Whoosh! Qingming flapped his chakra wings behind him, and his speed instantly soared to the limit. In almost a blink of an eye, he arrived above the mist ninja team behind. He didn't do anything fancy, he just made a death charge and approached the mist ninjas. Seeing this, the mist ninjas stopped talking immediately, and then, under the command of a mist hidden ninja, threw the kunai in their hands. Qingming's Sharingan was fully activated, and the shadow of the detonating talisman could be clearly seen on it. At this time, no matter what ninjutsu he used, it was too late, even though many ninjutsu had been perfected by him and released very quickly. However, the relative speed of both sides was faster now, leaving him no time to make hand seals and mobilize chakra. However, Qingming dared to do this, of course, for his reasons. He pulled his right hand from his waist, and a long sword appeared in his hand. The next moment, a ding-ding-dang-dang sounded, and the long sword in his hand was wielded tightly by him, and all the incoming kunai were cut down by him with one blow. By the time the detonating talisman on it exploded, he had already passed through the coverage area of the kunai. Boom boom boom, deafening explosions sounded, and fireballs appeared behind Qingming, dimming the brilliance of the sun behind him. Because Qingming was so fast, he rushed out of the flames, and the mist ninjas who saw this scene were all speechless. Not only that, the mist ninjas who had completed the seals and were ready to perform ninjutsu for a second attack also hesitated for a moment because Qingming did not dodge as expected. When they refocused their attention on Qingming, they had already missed the best opportunity. Qingming looked at the various ninjutsu that were coming, and calmly activated the wind style, wind wings. He just turned his body slightly and avoided the attack. The next moment, he put away his sword and formed seals, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, great breakthrough. It was still the same ninjutsu, and it still had the same taste. Even though these mist ninjas had been alert after the last time, the results were still the same. As for the reason, it was very simple. Although there was no white fog to cover this time, he relied on his absolute strength to create a great opportunity and still caught these mist ninjas off guard. In this way, the effect of the ninjutsu was naturally not bad. Looking at the staggering mist ninjas below, Qingming did not rush to launch an attack immediately, but glanced at another mist ninja team in the distance. Seeing that they had no intention of returning, he continued the attack. Wind style, wind blade fire style, great fireball technique fire style, phoenix fire technique fire style, dragon fire technique, swish, swish, swish. He released one ninjutsu after another, either targeting one person for a single attack, or targeting several people for a range attack. In short, after getting the chance, he was not polite at all, nor did he have any idea of saving chakra, and all kinds of ninjutsu were performed at once. The effect is naturally self-evident. In a short period of time, the number of mist ninjas killed reached 7 or 8, and the number of injured was in the double digits. You know, after his last round of attacks, the number of mist ninjas below was only about 120, and this time almost 1/6 of them were killed or injured. It can be imagined how big a blow it was to them. The key is that they can't do anything to Qingming, which makes it even more uncomfortable. Finally, after several rounds of fighting wits and courage, several mist ninjas completely gave up the idea of confrontation and led the team to the direction of the Blackstone stronghold. Seeing this scene, Qingming looked into the distance and confirmed that the Konoha ninjas who came to support had stopped the mist ninja team in front, so he no longer risked blocking them. Instead, he hung behind them, harassed them from time to time, and killed as many of their living forces as possible. In this way, after these people and the mist ninjas in front reunited, the number of survivors had dropped to less than 100. Moreover, one by one, they were all nervous and in poor condition. However, with a reunion of the two teams, it would not be easy for Qingming to strike from a high position. It's not that these mist ninjas can bring him much trouble after the reunion, but the Konoha ninjas who came to support have been mixed with him. In this way, if he takes action again, he will have to consider the life and death of these people, and naturally he can't attack as he pleases. Furthermore, the mist ninjas below were not stupid either. In order to avoid being targeted, they were all circling around the Konoha ninjas, which made it more difficult for him to attack. After waiting for an opportunity to kill a few people, Qingming finally gave up this safe combat mode. If he continued like this, before he could kill all the mist ninjas, the Konoha ninjas who came to support would be killed by the 10 mist hidden ninjas and collapsed. That's right, the manpower that Shinobuhisa transferred was not only inferior in quantity to the mist ninjas, but also in quality. As for the jounins alone, the real Konoha jounins and special jounins in the support team only had 6 people, which was completely unable to stop the total of 10 mist hidden ninjas. Therefore, he had to take action. With this thought in mind, Qingming no longer hesitated, and immediately swooped down to the top of a Konoha jounin who was being besieged by 3 mist hidden ninjas. The next moment, the wind style, wind wings was released. Qingming jumped up and came to the front of this Konoha jounin. Clang, the long sword was unsheathed. Qingming waved the long sword in his hand, his figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he blocked the attacks of the 3 Kurigakure jounin. Swish, swish, Swish! Several people distanced themselves from each other. In the back, the Konoha Jonin saw Qingming appear, and his voice was slightly excited. Qingming Jonin. Yeah, Qingming simply responded, and then said without turning his head, you go help the others, and I will take care of these 3 people. Hearing this, the Konoha Jonin in the back did not hesitate at all, and immediately responded, okay, be careful. After saying that, he left in an instant. Obviously, he was very confident in Qingming's strength. At the same time, the 3 Kurigakure Jonin on the periphery did not stop him from leaving, and one by one, they were staring at Qingming. Obviously, they also knew Qingming's strength very well, and did not dare to be careless. Chapter 415, Continuous Killings. Ding ding dang dang, the sounds of fighting were endless around. The place where Qingming and the 3 mist-hidden ninjas stood was unusually quiet, forming a sharp contrast. Time passed by. Qingming looked at the 3 people, and the 3 people were also staring at Qingming. No one moved rashly, until a breeze blew by, blowing up a cloud of dust, blocking the sight of one of the mist-hidden ninjas. At this moment, Qingming moved. A flash of green light suddenly appeared on his body. Then, wrapping the long sword, the instant sword technique was performed, and Qingming came to the mist-hidden ninja silently. Swish! A flash of knife light flashed. Be careful. On the other side, a mist-hidden ninja threw the kunai in his hand and warned at the same time. It should be said that as a Jonin, the reaction speed is fast, even if Qingming seized a very good opportunity. But just before the blade was about to hide him, the mist-hidden ninja still raised the kunai in his hand and made a blocking action. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound was heard. The longsword and kunai collided, and sparks flew out. Qingming's ears moved slightly, and his peripheral vision swept to the side, and he saw a kunai shot at him. Then, he tilted his head slightly and dodged the attack. Then, he exerted force with his feet, and the longsword in his hand went straight forward. Originally, the mist-hidden ninja in front of him did not make the best response strategy because of the tight time. Now that he was forced, he could not stop retreating. Qingming stared at the other party's eyes, and with a thought, the Genjutsu Sharingan was performed. In an instant, Kurosaki Takeo realized that something was wrong and immediately closed his eyes. The illusion failed, and Qingming said inwardly, what a pity. Then, he stretched out his left hand, and a light blue chakra ball appeared in his palm, and he pressed it directly to the opponent's abdomen. There is no doubt that this is the unprinted ninjutsu Rasengan. Now, this A-level ninjutsu has been upgraded to level 7 by him, and both the release speed and concealment have been greatly improved. In addition, Kurosaki Takeo took the initiative to close his eyes to avoid his illusion Sharingan. Without the important sense of vision, he obviously could not avoid this attack by instinct alone. Bang! Qingming's left hand pressed on Kurosaki Takeo's abdomen. With a severe pain, Kurosaki Takeo opened his mouth and spit out a large mouthful of blood. However, he was also a thief, and the blood sprayed towards Qingming's face. In order to avoid being splashed with blood, Qingming put away his knife and dodged. Taking this opportunity, Kurosaki Takeo staggered back 2 steps and stabilized his body with difficulty. However, looking at his appearance, he had obviously lost his fighting power. The other 2 mist-hidden ninjas saw this and their faces were quite ugly. They really didn't expect that their companions would be killed in seconds after just a face-to-face encounter. Although Kurosaki Takeo was only a special Jonin who was good at tracking, his overall strength was not too bad. However, just because of a small flaw, he was instantly seriously injured by Qingming, leaving them no chance to rescue. This made them feel more depressed. But the battle between ninjas is like this. The difference in strength is too great. As long as you are not the protagonist and do not have the ability to burst, the winner can be decided almost instantly. After all, in the ninja world, most ninjas are fragile. As long as you accumulate enough strength and hit them once, they can basically make the opponent lose their combat power. The difference in strength between Qingming and Kurosaki Takeo has undoubtedly reached this point. It is for this reason that Qingming can kill the opponent in one move. Turning around, Qingming looked at the other 2 and said in a slightly arrogant voice, "It's your turn, arrogant." Hearing this, another mist-hidden ninja shouted and immediately threw the kunai in his hand, then quickly formed seals with both hands, as if he was going to perform some kind of ninjutsu. However, Qingming did not give him this opportunity at all. He threw himself forward, dodging the kunai attack, and instantly closed the distance between him and the Kurigakure Jonin. Then, a green light appeared on his body, and he performed the instant sword technique. Before the opponent could finish the hand seal, he came in front of him. At this moment, he also had some shadows of the Iron Country general, Mifune. The opponent's swordsmanship was so fast that the ninjas didn't even have the chance to make a hand seal. And now, the Kurigaki or Jonin in front of Qingming couldn't continue to make hand seals and perform ninjutsu. Swish, a flash of sword light appeared. Qingming swung the sword and chopped at the opponent's neck. At the critical moment, Mihara Takuya gave up the hand seal, kicked the ground with his feet, and stepped back to avoid Qingming's slash. However, Qingming was relentless and took a step forward, approaching the opponent again, and raised the long sword in his hand upwards, cutting his throat. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound rang out. Mihara Takuya took out a kunai from his ninja tool bag and blocked Qingming's attack. Qingming narrowed his eyes slightly, and immediately wanted to use the same trick again, casting the Genjutsu Sharingan on the opponent. However, the opponent's reaction speed was very fast and cautious. He did not want to fight him, and immediately retreated. Seeing this, Qingming took a step to chase. However, at this moment, a thunder beast suddenly rushed from the side, carrying a huge amount of lightning chakra, and rushed straight to his face. Thunder escape! Qingming glanced at the thunder beast, and looked at another mist-hidden ninja in the distance. There is no doubt that this thunder beast was transformed by the opponent's ninjutsu. At this time, he was still making seals with his hands and pouring chakra into the body of this thunder beast. Qingming sensed the danger and immediately cast the flash body technique without any hesitation, speeding up and hiding in the distance. The thunder beast chased a few steps, but it could not keep up with his speed. Seeing this, Yamada Shinichi no longer insisted, changed his hand seal, and immediately detonated the thunder beast. The next moment, dazzling lightning flashed, and the thunder beast exploded with a boom, turning into lightning and spreading in all directions at a very fast speed. Before these lightnings approached, Qingming felt a tingling sensation in his body. So, he did not hesitate, jumped up, and avoided the first round of lightning attacks. When his feet landed again, although he could still feel the impact of lightning, it was not as strong. Despite this, Qingming still felt a little unhappy. So he simply thought about it and burst out the chakra in his body with all his strength. In an instant, a great power emanated from him. Those strands of lightning chakra that invaded his body were instantly dispelled. Qingming twisted his neck and felt a sense of comfort. Then, he cast his eyes again on Yamada Shinichi and Mihara Takuya. Bang! The ground under his feet exploded instantly, and Qingming's figure disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in front of Takuya and Mihara, who was closer and weaker. You? Looking at Qingming who suddenly appeared, Takuya Mihara was horrified and wanted to say something, but he had no chance. Originally, he was taken by the momentum that Qingming had just revealed, and his mind was a little unstable. Now he was attacked by Qingming again, and he couldn't react at all. Swish! The sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood sounded. Ding-dang! The kunai in Takuya Mihara's hand fell. He covered his neck with both hands, stared at Qingming, and made a series of meaningless sounds. Finally, with a bang, he fell to the ground. Chapter 416 Fierce Battle. Takuya. Damn it! Seeing Mihara Takuya being killed by Qingming with one sword, Yamada Shinichi cursed inwardly, then quickly formed a seal and used the ninjutsu against Qingming again. Lightning release, lightning rope! In an instant, a flash of lightning shot out, like a rope, and quickly wrapped around Qingming. Qingming, who already knew the power of the opponent's lightning release, naturally would not let him succeed easily. So, he dodged and avoided the entanglement of the lightning rope. However, the lightning rope did not dissipate because of this. Instead, it suddenly turned around like a poisonous snake and chased Qingming again. Seeing this, Qingming frowned slightly, then kicked the ground with both feet, and changed direction several times in a breath. However, even so, he still couldn't get rid of the pursuit of the lightning rope. It was like a thorn in his tarsal bone, clinging to him. Qingming was impatient with being chased, snorted coldly, and simply stopped dodging. Turning his head, Qingming swung the long sword in his hand at the incoming lightning rope. Just before the long sword touched the lightning rope, a large amount of wind chakra was poured into it, making it even sharper. Crackling, sizzling, the sound of lightning bursting rang out, and the long sword in Qingming's hand was slightly hindered, and then cut off the incoming lightning rope. In the relationship between the advantages and disadvantages of the 5 types of chakra changes, wind is a poor conductor of lightning, and wind escape just restrains lightning escape. In addition, His single burst of chakra is much higher than that of the opponent. Therefore, even if he did not perform ninjutsu and did not add leverage, he still broke the opponent's ninjutsu, which was at least B level, with one sword. Seeing this scene, Yamada Shinichi's pupils shrank slightly. He seemed to have not expected that his ninjutsu would be broken in this way, so he seemed very shocked. However, after the shock, he immediately formed a seal and performed another ninjutsu at the fastest speed. Lightning released two-headed wolf. Crackling accompanied by a burst of thunder and lightning, two thunder wolves as big as adults appeared. Looking at the two thunder wolves, Yamada Shinichi shouted, "Go!" The next moment, the two thunder wolves were like beasts out of the cage, splitting into the left and right sides, and rushed towards Qingming at a very fast speed. The so-called thunder style, two-headed wolf is actually an advanced version of the ninjutsu that Yamada Shinichi had performed not long ago to summon thunder beasts. Not only did the thunder beasts summoned by a change from the original vague appearance to the shape of wolves, appearing more agile, but the number also increased from 1 to 2. In this way, the power is naturally incomparable. Qingming knew that these thunder beasts would explode, so it was naturally impossible to let them get close easily. With this thought, he put away his sword and formed a seal, and instantly performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. Whoosh! Transparent wind blade flew out and cut directly at the thunder wolf running on the right. Qingming only glanced over there and confirmed that the thunder wolf was already unable to dodge. So, he no longer paid attention to that side, but jumped back and distanced himself from the thunder wolf that was rushing to the left. Then, without any delay, he formed a seal again and performed another ninjutsu, water style, great samurai technique. In an instant, a huge shark missile appeared in front of him, and then quickly pounced on the thunder wolf in front. With a powerful insight of the Sharingan, Qingming accurately grasped the thunder wolf's evasive angle, and the shark missile bit the thunder wolf. Because of its restraining effect on ninjutsu, the thunder wolf lost the opportunity to resist as soon as the two sides came into contact, and the shark missile madly absorbed chakra. As this process progressed, the shark missile became larger and larger, while the thunder wolf became smaller and smaller. With one gaining and the other losing, the result was already foreseeable. Damn it! Explode for me. Not far away, Yamada Shinichi saw this scene, cursed in his heart, changed the hand seals of both hands, and immediately detonated the thunder wolf. The next moment, dazzling lightning flashed, a strong electric current sounded, and the entire shark missile was wrapped in lightning and eventually disappeared. It is true that the characteristic of the water style, great shark bullet technique that it absorbs chakra to grow can theoretically restrain any ninjutsu. But it is only an A-level ninjutsu after all. Whether it is the speed of absorbing chakra or the amount of chakra absorbed, there is a certain upper limit. As long as this upper limit is broken, it will collapse without attack. There is no doubt that the chakra released at the moment of the thunder wolf's self-destruction exceeded this limit. Therefore, it eventually perished together with the thunder wolf. Not only this thunder wolf, but also another thunder wolf was cut in half by the giant wind blade released by Qingming. At this point, the crisis caused by Yamada Shinichi completely disappeared. Qingming almost did not hesitate, and immediately drew his sword to perform the instant sword technique, approaching the opponent at an extremely fast speed. Whoosh! A flash of cold light appeared. Qingming swung the longsword in his hand and hit the opponent's neck directly. Feeling the chill coming from Qingming's blade, Shinichi Yamada did not hesitate, looked up and dodged the attack. Sizzle! The blade passed through the air in front of him, and the wind chakra attached to it tore his clothes, leaving a shallow blood mark on his chest. Feeling the faint pain in his chest, Shinichi Yamada kicked the ground with both feet, and the whole person retreated diagonally. Seeing this, Qingming chased after him, took a step forward, and swung the longsword in his hand again, hitting the opponent's chest. Shinichi Yamada did not dare to resist, and quickly turned sideways and dodged to the side. Another knife missed. Qingming was not discouraged, and continued to swing the knife to chase, while Shinichi Yamada continued to dodge. For a while, the two sides went back and forth, it was so lively. However, if you look closely, you can find that most of the time, it was Qingming who attacked and Shinichi Yamada who dodged. Although Shinichi Yamada is a true Jonin, his abilities in ninjutsu, tai, and genjutsu are very balanced, and he has no obvious shortcomings. However, in front of Qingming, he was restricted everywhere. Not to mention the ninjutsu, after Qingming got close to him, he had no chance to use it. As for illusions, facing Qingming's Sharingan, He couldn't even use illusions actively. And it was already good enough that he didn't get hit by an illusion, so there was no room for him to use them. In the end, the only thing he could use was physical skills. Fortunately, he was proficient in lightning escape, and he could use the power of lightning escape to enhance his nerve reaction speed, so that he could barely keep up with Qingming's speed. Otherwise, he would have died under Qingming's sword. However, it was almost the same. After several minutes of high-intensity fighting, Qingming had already initially understood the opponent's behavior habits. Next, as long as he made good use of the inside of the Sharingan, he could easily find an opportunity. By then, even if the opponent had the blessing of lightning escape, he would not be his opponent. With this thought in mind, Qingming no longer held back and began to attack with all his strength. For a time, Yamada Shinichi was in a dangerous situation. Chapter 417 Water Transformation Technique. Ding! A crisp metal collision sound was heard. Qingming slashed with a knife, knocking the kunai in Yamada Shinichi's hand away. Then, without any pause, he suddenly turned his wrist and cut across the blade, leaving a long bloody mark on Yamada Shinichi's chest. A burning pain came, and Yamada Shinichi unconsciously groaned, then retreated several steps in succession, temporarily widening the distance between him and Qingming. Just as he was about to take a breath and take out a kunai again, Qingming had already come close. Swish! The blade flashed with cold light, and Qingming swung the knife again, attacking the opponent's neck. At this time, Yamada Shinichi was no longer able to dodge. At the critical moment, a kunai shot from the side. A chill hit his heart. Qingming glanced at the kunai with his peripheral vision, and he could confirm that if he continued to swing the knife, he would be hit by the kunai. By then, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. Obviously, the person who attacked had chosen the right time. HMPH, Qingming snorted coldly and gave up the attack temporarily. He tilted his body slightly, put away his sword and slashed it horizontally, and chopped off the incoming kunai with one blow. However, because of this, Yamada Shinichi escaped. Without any hesitation, he immediately jumped back a few times and distanced himself from Qingming. Qingming did not choose to chase him. He just glanced at him and ignored him. After a period of fighting, he had seen through the opponent's routine. It was not difficult to create similar opportunities and complete the kill. Moreover, although the knife he just chopped on his chest did not seriously injure him, it was not much different. His remaining combat power was estimated to be less than half of his peak. In this case, there was no need to chase him. Now, the most important thing was to deal with the two mist ninjas in front of him. Qingming turned his head and looked in the direction where the kunai had just been shot, and saw two mist ninjas, one on the left and one on the right, walking towards him. Looking behind them, a Konoha Jonin had his neck cut open and fell to the ground, dead. This time, there were 6 Jonins in Konoha's support team, and 10 in Kirigakure. He had previously pinned down 3 of them, and there were still 7 remaining Kirigakure Jonins. 7 to 6. 5 of the Konoha Jonins were fighting one-on-one with Kirigakure Jonins, but this Konoha Jonin was being flanked by 2 Kirigakure Jonins. It was normal for him to be killed. After all, not every Jonin had his strength to fight multiple opponents alone and win. In fact, except for a few geniuses, most Jonins were just ordinary people, and their combat power was not much different. In a one-on-one duel, as long as the tactical system was not too restrained, the winning rate would be about 50-50. At the very least, it would be about 60-40. And this gap can be basically ignored in a battle full of surprises. As for the Jonin whose winning rate obviously exceeds this ratio, they are all the best among the Jonin, also known as elite Jonin. And the Jonin of Konoha who was killed was obviously not an elite Jonin. So, it is normal to lose when facing 2 opponents of the same level. What's more, the opponents he faced were not necessarily of the same level. Qingming glanced at the Jonin of Kirigakure on the right. Through the vision of the Sharingan, he could see that the chakra in the opponent's body was far beyond the level of ordinary Jonin. Moreover, there was a chakra in his body that was always in a highly active state, as if it was always maintaining a certain ninjutsu. Compared with the Konoha Jonin who died, this Jonin of Kirigakure had some possibility of being an elite Jonin. However, we have to fight to know the details. With this thought, Qingming's body was covered with the green light, and he performed the instant sword technique. In an instant, his speed soared to the limit, and in almost a blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the Jonin of Kirigakure. The two looked at each other, and Qingming had an idea and was about to use the Genjutsu Sharingan. However, The opponent's reaction speed was very fast, and his perception of danger was also very sharp. Almost at the moment when he activated the Sharingan, he closed his eyes. Seeing this, Qingming had no choice but to give up. But he couldn't stop attacking. Swoosh, the knife flashed. Qingming swung his knife and hit the opponent's neck. Ding, the crisp sound of metal collision rang out. The mist-hidden ninja in front of him raised the short sword in his hand and accurately blocked his attack. Moreover, before he could change his moves, he pressed forward with force. He turned his body to the side and dodged his blade. At the same time, the short sword brushed against his long sword and stabbed straight at his neck. Swoosh, the long sword and the short sword rubbed against each other, making a teeth-grinding sound, and sparks burst between the two. Qingming looked at the opponent's reaction, his eyes lit up slightly. Although it was only one move, it was enough for him to see a lot of things. For example, the opponent's swordsmanship is not bad. This makes Qingming happy, as he learned the Konoha-style swordsmanship and Uchiha-style swordsmanship to perfection. He also perfected the swordsmanship that was a fusion of the two, and developed the sword moves of instant swordsmanship and illusion swordsmanship on it. Most ninjas who use swords to fight are no longer his opponents. Now, he finally met someone he likes, so he naturally wants to learn a lesson. With this thought, Qingming leaned back and avoided the opponent's short sword attack by a hair's breadth. Then, without any courtesy, he immediately displayed the perfect level of swordsmanship and fought with him. For a while, the sound of ding ding dang dang rang non-stop. His feeling was not wrong, the opponent's swordsmanship was indeed very powerful. If it were other Jonins with relatively ordinary strength, they would probably be caught by the flaws and killed in one blow in a short time if they fought with him in close combat. That's how the dead Konoha Jonin died. The opponent's current state is like him before he opened the Mangekyo Sharingan, and he could defeat a lot of Jonins with just swordsmanship. Unfortunately, the opponent has met him now. Whether it is pure swordsmanship itself or comprehensive strength, he is not comparable to ordinary Jonin. Therefore, after a battle, the opponent did not catch his flaws, but was tested by him to the limit of swordsmanship. At a certain moment, Qingming found the flaw in the opponent's swordsmanship, and then swung out with a knife and cut directly on his neck. Puff! However, surprisingly, there was no sound of a sharp blade entering the flesh, and there was no scene of blood flowing. His knife did hit the opponent's neck. However, at the moment when his blade was about to hide him, the opponent's neck and half of his body suddenly turned into the form of water. Water transformation secret technique. Qingming recognized the opponent's moves at a glance. This ability to transform the body into liquid can only be achieved by the secret technique of the Kirigakure Kazuna clan, the water transformation technique. Qingming really didn't expect that the other party was actually a ninja from the Kazuna clan, and it seemed that he was a core member. Otherwise, it would be impossible to learn this secret ninjutsu. It was also at this time that Qingming realized what the ninjutsu that he had seen in his body before was. It turned out that it was the water transformation technique of the Kazuna clan. It turned out that this was still a semi-passive ability. However, think about it, if not, how could the attacked part be accurately transformed into water at the moment of being attacked? If you want to predict the attack in advance and then cast the technique at the right time, then this ability is too useless and it is impossible to become a secret of the Kazuna clan. Can I learn it? Suddenly, this thought popped up in Qingming's mind. But soon, he shook his head. Learning this water transformation technique is not just about mobilizing chakra. Before that, there are many prerequisite steps. And this is the most important thing. Qingming estimated that even if he took down the other party, it would be impossible to get the relevant knowledge from his mind. It must have a corresponding seal protection. Therefore, there is no need to think about relying on the copying ability of the Sharingan to learn it. As for conducting reverse research from it, that is something that Orochimaru would do, not him. If he has the time, he might as well brush up on his proficiency in the reflection of the heart technique. It's just a water transformation technique, how can it be stronger than his heavenly control? Chapter 418 1 Vote 3. What Qingming was thinking, Kazuna Zangetsu didn't know, nor did he care. He was just a little surprised when Qingming instantly recognized the secret technique he performed. After being surprised, it was time to counterattack. Water style, great water arm technique. In an instant, Kazuna Zangetsu concentrated a large amount of water in his body into his right arm, then swung the short sword in his hand and slashed it straight at Qingming's neck. With a strong sense of crisis, Qingming stepped back half a step, slightly distanced himself, and then put the sword aside to try to block the attack. Ding! A metal collision sound far greater than the previous one sounded. When the long sword and the short sword collided, Qingming only felt a great force coming, and the whole person was taken back several steps by this force. What a great force! Is this the water style, great water arm technique? Qingming's Sharingan turned slightly, looking at the other party's thick right arm, secretly frightened. Seeing Qingming retreat, Hazuki's Angetsu took another step forward, swung the short sword in his right hand, and continued to slash at Qingming. Originally, Qingming could have dodged, but seeing the other party's appearance, he simply didn't dodge. He mobilized the chakra in his body, and based on the medical knowledge he learned, he accurately strengthened the muscle groups of his arms and waist and abdomen, and then swung a knife. Ding! A sharp metal collision sound rang out. When the long sword and the short sword collided, Qingming felt his wrist numb and the long sword almost slipped out of his hand. He was so embarrassed, and Hazuki's Angetsu was also uncomfortable. In just a moment, his thick right arm returned to normal. Obviously his ninjutsu was broken. Yugai, Hazuki's Angetsu looked at Qingming, who still looked young, and gritted his teeth. However, Qingming didn't want to listen to any nonsense from the other party. After the attack, he swung the knife again without any hesitation. Seeing this, Hazuki's Angetsu quickly raised the short sword to block. But because he lacked the blessing of water style, great water arm technique, he was no match for Qingming in terms of strength. Therefore, he was forced to retreat by Qingming. Seeing that this worked, Qingming simply stopped talking about sword skills and continued to attack the opponent with brute force. On the other side, Hazuki's Angetsu was afraid of losing the initiative, so he didn't dare to dodge easily and could only follow the bombardment. For a while, the battle between the two had a feeling of returning to the primitive. However, just as the two were fighting each other, several shurikens suddenly shot from not far away and attacked Qingming's vital parts. Qingming sensed the danger at the first time, so he dodged and avoided the attack. At the same time, he looked in the direction where the shuriken came from. He saw that another Kurigakure Junin was looking at him steadily, as if he was about to launch a second attack at any time. Qingming recognized the other party. He was none other than the Kurigakure Junin who had teamed up with Hazuki's Angetsu to kill the Konoha Junin before. Before this, the opponent had been eyeing him, but because of his limited strength, he could not intervene in the fight between him and Kazuna's Angetsu. Now, he finally got a chance. Swish, swish, swish! Several more shurikens flew over. The Sharingan in Qingming's pupils turned slightly. In an instant, he locked the flight trajectory of these shurikens, and then swung several swords in succession, accurately chopping off these shurikens. However, after being delayed like this, Kazuna's Angetsu found an opportunity. He formed seals with his hands, his fingers became guns, and performed the ninjutsu, water style, water cannon technique. In an instant, a drop of liquid like a bullet shot out from his fingertips and hit Qingming's head at a very fast speed. It can be predicted that once Qingming is hit by this move, his head will most likely explode like a watermelon. A strong sense of crisis came over him. Qingming caught a glimpse of this drop of liquid in his peripheral vision, and without any hesitation, he immediately injected a large amount of fire-style chakra into the long sword. Then, he swung it out instantly. A strong resistance came, and the blade in Qingming's hand collided with a bullet-shaped liquid, and the next moment they exploded. The flames burned fiercely, and Qingming felt a huge recoil force, and the whole person stepped back several steps. At the same time, the drop of liquid fired by Kazuna's Angetsu was also evaporated by the raging flames. Can it be like this? Kazuna's Angetsu saw this scene and his eyes suddenly widened. He thought that this move would not kill Qingming, but he did not expect that he would deal with it like this. And this also caused some flaws in the cooperation between him and the mist-hidden ninja not far away. Qingming seized this opportunity and performed the instant sword technique. The whole person suddenly turned into a residual image and came to the front of the mist-hidden ninja not far away. Whoosh! A cold light flashed. Qingming swung the long sword in his hand. Takashima Ichiro felt the cold killing intent on it, and hurriedly wanted to take a step back to avoid the attack. However, in his field of vision, the long sword swung by Qingming suddenly split into two, slashing at him from different angles. What is this? Takashima Ichiro was confused, and his backward movement could not help but pause. However, it was this moment of hesitation that made him completely passive. Slash! The sound of the sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood rang out. Although Takashima Ichiro made the right response at the last moment, because his mind was previously captured by the illusion sword technique. Therefore, he still failed to completely avoid the knife and was slashed on the arm by Qingming. Tick-tock, blood was left on Takashima Ichiro's arm. Qingming did not stop and caught up with the opponent again, and was about to slash. However, at this moment, a flash of lightning shot from a distance, turned into a rope, and went straight to his wrist. Qingming glanced over there and saw Yamada Shinichi was making a seal with his hands at this time, and a lightning rope shot out from his palms and rushed towards him. Looking at his chest again, a circle of bandages was wrapped around it. Obviously, the wound had been treated by him, and his fighting power had recovered a little. Seeing the other person's appearance, Qingming suddenly thought of the guy who was seriously injured by his Rasengan before. So, he looked to both sides. Then, he saw the man on the ground in the distance. At this time, he was slumped on the ground, his face showing pain, blood staining his clothes. And his appearance was as miserable as it could be. Obviously, the injury caused by the Rasengan was much more serious than the wound suffered by Yamada Shinichi. Even if it took longer to recover, there was no improvement. This made Qingming feel a little relieved. Retracting his gaze, Qingming paused, and then the whole person was like pulling onions in dry land, kicking the ground with both feet and flying backwards. And almost at the moment he left the original place, a lightning rope passed through the afterimage left by him, and hit nothing. Qingming stabilized his body, glanced at the three people in front of him, thinking about how to take them down as soon as possible. Similarly, Kazuna Zangetsu, Yamada Shinichi and Takashima Ichiro also gathered together, staring at Qingming, thinking about how to join forces to kill him. For a moment, the battlefield fell into an eerie silence. Time passed by minute. At a certain moment, the four people in the field moved together. Kazuna Zangetsu, Yamada Shinichi and Takashima Ichiro suddenly separated, forming a shape, and surrounded Qingming. And what about Qingming? While running, he suddenly raised his hands, crossed them to form a seal, and performed a ninjutsu that ordinary ninjas would only perform when escaping, the shadow clone technique. In the blink of an eye, he split into three, becoming three people, and met Kazuna Zangetsu, Yamada Shinichi, and Takashima Ichiro respectively. The battle broke out instantly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 419 Targeting. Ding 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 ding, the longsword and the kunai collided in succession, making a series of crisp metal collision sounds. Qingming's real body went straight to Shinichi Yamada. Among the three people on the opposite side, he had the longest contact time with Shinichi Yamada and was the most familiar with him. In addition, the knife wound on his chest was only treated initially and had not yet healed, so his combat power was reduced, making him the most suitable to serve as a breakthrough point. That's right, he did not hesitate to consume a lot of chakra and split two shadow clones to assist in the battle, just to form a one-on-one situation, and then defeat them one by one. However, his intention was quite obvious, and the three missed hidden ninjas guessed his idea at the first time. Therefore, one by one, before they could tell which one was his real body, they behaved extremely cautiously. In addition to the necessary counterattacks, they did not make any extra movements at all, and they were very focused, and 70% to 80% of their attention was used on defense. Not only that, they also tacitly kept a close distance. In this way, no matter who Qingming attacked, the other two could react in the shortest time and then provide support. As expected of all of you, you are all Jonin, you have rich combat experience. Qingming saw the performance of the three people, and naturally understood their thoughts, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Originally, he was thinking of saving some energy. Now it seems that there is no way to save it. With this thought, Qingming no longer hesitated, and immediately went all out, launching a fierce attack on Yamada Shinichi in front of him. In just a moment, his unusual movement attracted the attention of the other two. However, before they could figure out whether he was deliberately setting a trap to lure them into being fooled, or if he really wanted to attack Yamada Shinichi, the two shadow clones he split out had already understood what the original body meant. The next moment, the two of them went all out at the same time, launching the same fierce attack on Kazuna Zangetsu and Takashima Ichiro. Their purpose was simple, That is, to delay Kazuna Zangetsu and Takashima Ichiro as much as possible, so as to buy time for Qingming to kill Yamada Shinichi. This time, there was no need to guess. Kazuna Zangetsu and Takashima Ichiro also understood that Qingming who attacked Yamada Shinichi was most likely the original body. Unfortunately, even if they wanted to help, they didn't have the time. Now, Qingming's chakra has already exceeded 100,000 points. Even if it is divided into 3, each person has 35,000 points of chakra. And so much chakra can make up for the shortcomings of the shadow clone's insufficient ability to withstand injuries to a certain extent. This is not to say that with these chakras, the shadow clone's ability to withstand injuries will increase, but sufficient chakra can allow them to change their tactical thinking and avoid this defect. For example, the ninjutsu machine gun. As long as they continue to perform ninjutsu and use the huge chakra to bombard the enemy, they can reduce the chance of a direct confrontation with the enemy to a certain extent. In this way, the shortcomings of the shadow clone's insufficient ability to withstand injuries are naturally solved. It just so happens that he has several ninjutsu, and his proficiency has reached the perfect state. When he performs it, the speed is extremely fast, and it is not a problem to use it to restrict the actions of ordinary jonin. At least, there is no problem in the short term. And now, Kazuna Zangetsu and Takashima Ichiro are restrained by such tactics. The two shadow clones fighting with them didn't care about the consumption of chakra at all. They used all kinds of ninjutsu crazily and beat them to flee in embarrassment. At this time, let alone helping Yamada Shinichi, their own safety was greatly threatened. In this situation, Qingming naturally gained an undisturbed external environment. Because of this, Qingming started to fight, which can be said to be unscrupulous. Relying on the experience accumulated from the previous fight, Qingming opened fire at full power, pushed the 3 Magatama Sharingan to the limit, and beat Yamada Shinichi with an attacking and non-defensive posture. Finally, after Qingming swung the longsword in his hand again, Yamada Shinichi was unable to react and just barely blocked the attack. The whole person was shocked by the force transmitted from the blade and retreated half a step. Qingming seized this opportunity keenly, and the chakra in his body surged. The muscle groups of the right arm holding the sword and the waist and abdomen where the force was exerted were instantly strengthened, and the strength increased greatly. "Ha!" he shouted, and once again drew back his sword and slashed diagonally, aiming directly at Shinichi Yamada's neck and chest. A strong sense of crisis came over Shinichi Yamada, and his pupils dilated. He swung the kunai in his hand with all his strength, trying to block the blow. Unfortunately, Qingming's blow was too powerful. In addition, the previous blow had already made him lose some balance. This time, he was naturally even more unable to block it. Ding! A sharp metal collision sound rang out. The kunai and the long sword collided, and the huge recoil force came. Shinichi Yamada felt his arm numb, and the whole person involuntarily retreated. Not only that, because he had just used too much force, the knife wound on his chest, which had not healed, was torn open again, and a large amount of blood spilled out, staining the bandage outside red. Seeing this, Qingming did not stop, took another step, and chased after him. Whoosh! A cold light flashed. Qingming swung the knife again. Shinichi Yamada continued to block. Ding! A huge recoil force came. Yamada Shinichi could not maintain his body shape and was forced to continue to retreat. Qingming was relentless and launched another attack. Yamada Shinichi continued to block. For a while, the sound of metal clashing rang continuously. Finally, when Yamada Shinichi was blocked by a huge rock behind him, Qingming's knife, which had been accumulated to the extreme, fell. The shadow of death floated in his heart. Yamada Shinichi looked at the long knife that was chopped straight at him, and his eyes were full of bloodshot. Suddenly, he let out a shout. Then, a layer of dense lightning appeared on the surface of his body. Then, his speed increased dramatically, and in just a moment, he disappeared in front of Qingming. Qingming's knife fell, and the huge rock behind was instantly split into two by the extremely condensed wind chakra. Qingming calmly put away his knife, turned his head and looked to the right, where there was a figure, hunched over, breathing heavily. In addition, there was a layer of charred black on his body, as if he had been burned by something, and there was a faint smell of meat. That's right, this person was none other than Yamada Shinichi, who had just dodged his fatal knife. Judging from his appearance, he obviously used some forbidden moves. Otherwise, he would not have ended up like this. According to his experience, Such moves are usually impossible to perform multiple times in a short period of time. In other words, the opponent has run out of tricks. With this thought, Qingming's body glowed with the green light and he performed the instant sword technique. In an instant, he came in front of the opponent. Then, he swung his knife. Chapter 420, Defeat them one by one. Swish, the sound of a sharp blade cutting through flesh and blood rang out. Yamada Shinichi tried his best to dodge the last blow, but he couldn't dodge the second blow. Qingming didn't give the opponent any time to react. The moment he came over, he used the illusion sword technique and cut his throat while the opponent was in a bad state. Clang, the kunai in his hand fell. Yamada Shinichi looked at Qingming in front of him, covering his throat, opening his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't say a word. Boom, his body fell heavily. Qingming sighed lightly, then turned his head and looked at the other two people who were entangled by the shadow clone. At this time, the two people also noticed the movement here and saw Yamada Shinichi's death. It's okay for Kazuna Zangetsu. He thinks that he is very strong. Even if he can't beat Qingming, he won't be defeated easily. So, he doesn't have much fear in his heart. On the contrary, Takashima Ichiro, a special Jonin, had his pupils shrink suddenly when he saw this scene, and he could not help but feel afraid of Qingming. He knew Yamada Shinichi's strength well, and he was definitely stronger than himself. Now, the opponent had died in Qingming's hands. If he were to take over, he would probably not be much worse, or even worse. And looking at Qingming's appearance, it was obvious that he would target him or Kazuna Zangetsu next. This made him very nervous. Although he did not show these on his face, Qingming still noticed them at the first time. Looking at his bleeding left arm, Qingming did not hesitate at all, and immediately used a flash sword technique and ran towards the opponent. Not long ago, he intervened in the fight between him and Kazuna Zangetsu, and he was caught by him and cut his left arm. In the end, he relied on Yamada Shinichi's rescue to escape. Now, Yamada Shinichi has been killed by him, who can help him next? Swish, Qingming's figure appeared. The shadow clone that was fighting against him stopped casting spells instantly, and then without Qingming's order, he gave up the opponent in front of him and ran towards Kazuna Zangetsu. Obviously, he was ready to put pressure on Kazuna Zangetsu together with another shadow clone. Seeing this, Qingming nodded secretly and thought to himself, sure enough, no matter when, cooperating with me is always the most tacit. The shadow clone inherited his combat experience and memory, and was very clear about his style and ideas. Therefore, every time at a critical moment, he can always make the most correct choice. Just like now, without communicating, the two completed the handover. And this also left Ichiro Takashima no chance to escape. Looking at the pale figure in front of him due to excessive blood loss, Qingming swung a knife without hesitation. Ding, a crisp metal collision sound rang out. The kunai and the long sword collided, and Ichiro Takashima felt a strong force coming, which made him unable to help but numb his arm, and the whole person retreated half a step back. However, it was this half step that made his already bad situation even worse. Qingming almost didn't hesitate at all, and immediately caught up with him, swinging his second knife in an instant, and used the illusion sword technique, ready to give him a double goal. However, although Takashima Ichiro's strength was poor, he was still a Jonin after all, and his combat experience was there. So he didn't fall twice in the same place. Almost at the moment he noticed the abnormality, he bit his tongue and used the pain to get rid of the influence of the illusion. Therefore, Qingming didn't affect the opponent at all. Ding, the longsword and kunai collided, splashing sparks. A huge recoil force came, and Takashima Ichiro used this force to retreat a step, trying to distance himself from Qingming. Unfortunately, Qingming didn't give him this opportunity at all. Then a ray of green light appeared on his body. The next moment, he disappeared from the spot. Is it that move again? Ichiro Takashima had seen Qingming use the instant sword technique several times, and the moment he saw the layer of green light appear, he guessed his plan. Therefore, he immediately focused his perception on the surroundings. Takashima Ichiro was a ninja who was good at lurking and gathering intelligence. His perception ability was much stronger than that of ordinary ninjas. With some preparation, he could easily find Qingming's trace. However, this was useless, because he had no other way except to dodge. In a head-on confrontation, he was no match for Qingming at all, and Qingming would not give him the opportunity to distance himself. So, he could only remain in a stalemate. But the principle of long defense leads to failure is applicable everywhere. The continuous attacks made it increasingly difficult for Takashima Ichiro to defend. Qingming was like an ice-cold machine. With the convenience of the Sharingan, he constantly analyzed the opponent's behavior patterns and tried to find flaws in it. Time passed by minute by minute. About 3 minutes later, when Takashima Ichiro dodged his knife again and distanced himself, Qingming's eyes suddenly lit up. He found an opportunity. Without any hesitation, Qingming immediately took out several shurikens from his ninja tool bag, and then aimed at Takashima Ichiro and threw them out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A subtle sound of breaking through the air sounded. Takashima Ichiro, who was always tense, discovered the incoming shurikens at the first time. Although he did not have the Sharingan like Qingming, he could not see the flight trajectory of all the incoming shurikens in an instant. However, with years of combat experience, he knew almost instinctively that the space for him to dodge had been blocked by Qingming. If he dodges rashly, not only will he not be able to avoid the attack, but it may also cause more serious consequences. So, he waved the kunai in his hand to intercept the incoming shuriken head-on. Of course, he did not forget to pay attention to Qingming. After all, Qingming would not do this simply to block his dodge space, and he must have a follow-up move. Sure enough, the moment his eyes moved over, he saw Qingming quickly forming a seal, and then opened his mouth and performed a ninjutsu, fire-style, dragon fire technique. Puff! A line of fire spit out from Qingming's mouth. The next moment, it turned into a red fire dragon and rushed straight towards Takashima Ichiro. At this time, Takashima Ichiro had just knocked away the incoming shuriken, and was at the stage where the old strength had been exhausted and the new strength had not yet been generated, so he could not perform a spell to defend in the first time. There was no way, he could only dodge sideways. Boom! The fire dragon bombarded the ground, blasting out a charred pit. And a large amount of soil and gravel scattered around, and many of them hit Takashima Ichiro. However, Takashima Ichiro had no mind to pay attention to these now. Because in the next moment, dense balls of fire shot towards him, which was exactly the fire-style, phoenix fire technique performed by Qingming. Before, when the shadow clones used various ninjutsu to bombard, they could not attack too accurately because the Sharingan was a replica. Now, after Qingming found the opportunity, this accuracy directly brought huge trouble to Takashima Ichiro. He rushed left and right, constantly dodging the incoming fireballs, but these fireballs seemed to have eyes and kept coming towards him. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and these fireballs could not change direction too much in a short distance. Otherwise, he would have fallen down with just this round of attacks. However, he only lasted one more round. When Qingming used the fire-style, phoenix fire technique again without any delay and secretly added the shuriken attack, he could not dodge. The red burning shuriken flashed across the opponent's waist and abdomen like lightning, leaving a charred scar amid his screams of pain. Then, other fireballs followed one after another and submerged him in an instant. When everything returned to calm, only a charred figure was left on the spot. Tap, tap, tap. Qingming stepped closer. The charred figure struggled to raise his head slightly and looked over here, with an unwilling look in his eyes. Whoosh! A kunai flew out from Qingming's palm and accurately nailed his heart. You feeling the severe pain from his heart? Takashima Ichiro's pupils suddenly dilated. After struggling to spit out a word, he completely lost his life. Zzz! A subtle sound came. Takashima Ichiro's palm spread out weakly, revealing a burning detonating talisman. The next moment, there was a loud bang, and Takashima Ichiro's body was blown to pieces. A red fireball appeared and engulfed everything around. Qingming raised his hand, slightly covering his face, ignoring the smoke and dust brought by the shock wave, and watched the scene quietly without saying a word. It must be said that although the other party was afraid of him, his courage to drag him down in the end was still worthy of recognition. However, the enemy is the enemy, and Qingming will not have the slightest mercy on the enemy. Chapter 421 Counterattack and Change. Retracting his thoughts, Qingming cast his eyes towards the ghost lantern Zangetsu, who was entangled with two shadow clones not far away. After killing two people in succession, Qingming's momentum has reached its peak. Even if he is as strong as ghost lantern Zangetsu, he can't help but feel a little scared when he is stared at like this. He dodged and dodged the joint attack of the two shadow clones again, and ghost lantern Zangetsu quietly pulled away. He glanced at the battlefield around him. Because of the larger number of people and the relatively higher quality of individual soldiers, the Kurigakure side has a clear advantage on the entire battlefield at this time. After confirming this, Ghost Lantern Zangetsu made up his mind to drag Qingming here. As long as he can drag others, or even win in other battlefields, even if he doesn't kill Qingming in the end, they will be considered victorious. After all, war is never a matter of one person. However, Ghost Lantern Zangetsu turned his head and looked at the two shadow clones of Qingming, thinking to himself, before that, we have to get rid of these two things first. Although he is a conceited person, he is not arrogant. Since Qingming was able to kill both Yamada Shinichi and Takashima Ichiro, it meant that he was very strong. In addition, after the previous fight, he did not dare to underestimate Qingming. Therefore, it was very necessary to deal with these two shadow clones before the second fight. Firstly, this would reduce the pressure later. After all, fighting alone is always better than fighting three. Secondly, this move could also consume Qingming's chakra. After the shadow clones were dispersed, although some chakra would still return to the main body, the chakra it carried was completely different from the chakra that was actively released. Therefore, if possible, he did not want to give Qingming's shadow clones the opportunity to actively release. With this thought, Kazuna Zangetsu no longer hesitated and immediately ran towards one of the shadow clones. Seeing this, the shadow clone did not hesitate at all, and immediately raised his hand to seal and perform the ninjutsu, fire style, Phoenix Fire technique. The next moment, he spat out a dense mass of fireballs, like bullets, shooting at the rapidly approaching Kazuna Zangetsu, trying to force him to retreat. At the same time, another shadow clone also began to prepare, ready to attack immediately after Kazuna Zangetsu dodged. In the past period of time, they used this kind of cooperation to contain the opponent. However, to their surprise, Kazuna Zangetsu did not choose to retreat this time. Facing the dense mass of fireballs, Kazuna Zangetsu concentrated his mind and tried his best to sense the incoming fireballs, then rushed left and right, constantly dodging the attacks of these fireballs. It can be seen that many fireballs flew close to his body, and if he was not careful, he would be injured. But even so, Kazuna Zangetsu did not give up. While dodging the attacks of the fireballs, he quickly approached the shadow clone who released the fire style, Phoenix Fire technique. Seeing this shadow clone also did not dodge, but spat out more fireballs. Originally, Kazuna Zangetsu had been dodging very hard, and now that the distance was shortened, it was naturally more difficult. Finally, after dodging several more fireballs, Kazuna Zangetsu was unable to dodge and was hit by 3 fireballs. However, as expected, the body was not burned by the fireballs. At the moment when the 3 fireballs hit Kazuna Zangetsu's body, the place where he was hit, along with a large area of flesh and blood around him, turned into liquid. This was the secret ninjutsu of the Kazuna clan, the water transformation technique. Although the fireballs hit these liquids, causing some damage, making Kazuna Zangetsu frown slightly, there was no follow-up. After he turned back into flesh, there was no sign of any injury at all. That's right, the water transformation technique is not only 100% immune to physical attacks, but also has a strong resistance to various ninjutsu attacks. For example, now, even the fire ninjutsu that is most restrained against water ninjutsu cannot cause much damage to Kazuna Zangetsu. Basically, there are no other consequences except that he consumes more chakra than when facing other ninjutsu. Of course, it does not mean that the water transformation technique is perfect. At least, as far as Qingming knows, lightning release is very restraining to this technique. However, it is not that lightning release has a great restraining effect on the water transformation technique itself, but the paralysis effect it contains, which will prevent the caster from fully liquefying. In other words, lightning release can interrupt the opponent's water transformation technique. However, it is a pity that Qingming has not yet developed lightning attribute chakra and does not know any lightning release ninjutsu, so he cannot target the opponent's water transformation technique. However, it is precisely because of this that Kazuna Zangetsu dared to take the risk and approach the shadow clone. Otherwise, even if he was given 10 courages, he would not dare to resist the attack of the shadow clone. After all, there is still a shadow clone next to him waiting for him to make a mistake. Once he is really restricted by lightning release, then what awaits him must be a devastating blow. Fortunately, after some testing, he had confirmed that Qingming did not know any lightning ninjutsu, so he dared to give it a try. After the adventure, The harvest was also very great. Looking at the shadow clone close at hand, Kizuna Zangetsu did not hesitate at all, and immediately swung the dagger in his hand and attacked Qingming's shadow clone like lightning. The shadow clone was unable to dodge and was directly cut by the sword. Bang! With a burst of chakra smoke, the shadow clone completely collapsed. All of this is long to say, but it actually happened in an instant. Whether it is Qingming or the other shadow clone, there is no chance to intervene, and they can only watch it all happen. Exhaling lightly, Kizuna Zangetsu retracted the dagger, turned his head, and looked at Qingming and the other shadow clone. His face was calm, as if he had done something insignificant. If Qingming could not clearly see the drastic change in his breathing frequency before and after the move, he might really be fooled by him. As for now, that is naturally the move. The other party has already made a move, so he certainly can't remain indifferent. He looked at the shadow clone and rushed forward without Qingming's order. It seemed that he was going to fight with Kizuna Zangetsu in close combat. You know, not long ago, the strategy he formulated for the shadow clone was to attack from a distance. But now, the other party wanted to rush forward. In this regard, Qingming could only say that it was a different time. At that time, he needed a shadow clone to contain the opponent and buy time, so he naturally had to avoid close combat as much as possible to avoid the weakness of the shadow clone's insufficient ability to withstand injuries. But now, he needs the opponent to create opportunities. Naturally, there is no need to worry too much. Anyway, it's just a shadow clone. As long as he can create an opportunity for him to kill the opponent, it doesn't matter if he sacrifices. Chapter 422, Killing. Ding ding dang dang! In the blink of an eye, the shadow clone and Hazuki's Angetsu fought together. The shadow clone attacked with all his strength, while Hazuki's Angetsu, although he was afraid of Qingming's existence and mainly defended, would not hesitate to launch a counterattack as long as he got the chance. Therefore, the two sides fought very fiercely. The shadow clone was almost hit by the opponent several times and then collapsed, while Hazuki's Angetsu was forced to transform into water several times. Time passed by minute. Finally, at a certain moment, Qingming made a move. He did not rush to approach the opponent, but found the right opportunity and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wind blade. A meter-long transparent wind blade quickly formed in front of him, and then shot towards Hazuki's Angetsu. At this time, the opponent just got rid of the water state. The next moment, the wind blade was approaching. However, to Qingming's disappointment, almost at the moment when the wind blade was approaching, the opponent entered the water state again. The wind blade passed through the opponent's body and did not cause any damage to him. Is it really a semi-passive ability? If Qingming was just guessing before, now he's 100% sure. The wind blade just now was a great opportunity created by him using the powerful insight of the Sharingan and the heart-to-heart technique to communicate with the shadow clone. According to the opponent's reaction speed in the past period of time, if this water transformation technique must be actively controlled, then the opponent will definitely not be able to react just now. But the fact is that the opponent reacted. This means that his guess is correct. As long as he uses this technique before the battle begins, he can passively resist various fatal and non-fatal injuries to a certain extent. This shows how bad this water transformation technique is. Unfortunately, he did not develop the lightning attribute chakra. Otherwise, it would be much easier. And this also made him redetermined to master all attribute chakras, because only in this way would he not have any shortcomings. Shaking his head and temporarily putting these thoughts behind him, Qingming slowly drew out the long sword at his waist and walked straight towards the opponent. At first, his pace was still slow, but after a few steps, with a flash of green light, he disappeared from the spot. Kizuna Zangetsu, who had been paying attention to this side, saw this scene, and his pupils shrank suddenly. The next moment, he ducked to avoid the attack of the shadow clone, and then raised the dagger in his hand to block the right side of his body. Ding! The next moment, a crisp metal collision sound rang out. Qingming, who performed the instant sword technique, swung a knife and chopped on Kizuna Zangetsu's dagger. The huge force came, causing Kizuna Zangetsu to slip and retreat half a step back. Seeing this, Qingming did not hesitate at all and immediately put away the knife and chopped again. Kizuna Zangetsu, who had experience in fighting before, knew that once he entered Qingming's rhythm, he would be overwhelmed. Therefore, this time he did not choose to resist, but consumed chakra to make his body enter a hydrated state and dodge this attack. Not only that, He also took the opportunity to launch a counterattack. Qingming looked at the dagger piercing his throat. His expression did not change at all, as if he had expected it, and he slightly turned his body to avoid the attack. However, after finally finding an opportunity, how could Kazuna give up easily? Almost in the next moment, his dagger changed from stabbing to cutting, slashing horizontally towards Qingming's neck, trying to cut off his carotid artery. Qingming reacted quickly, and immediately retracted his long sword, erected it in front of him, and blocked the attack. Qingming and Kazuna used force at the same time, and the blade of the longsword and the edge of the dagger rubbed against each other, making a harsh sound. Looking at Kazuna, who was so close, Qingming's pupils shrank slightly, and he was about to cast the Genjutsu, Sharingan. In an instant, Kazuna realized that something was wrong, and quickly closed his eyes, and at the same time withdrew his sword and retreated. Qingming seized the opportunity and immediately followed up, swinging his sword diagonally. The blade slashed across the opponent's chest, but there was no feeling of slicing through flesh and blood. Instead, there was a sticky feeling of blockage. Qingming looked closely and saw that the opponent's body had turned into liquid at some point, and his long sword was confined inside his body. Qingming's brain was working rapidly. The next moment, he mobilized a large amount of chakra, transformed it into fire escape, and injected it into the long sword. With a boom, a raging fire ignited on the blade of his long sword. The flames erupted from the body of Kazuna's Genjutsu, instantly covering his entire body, frightening him so much that he immediately entered a state of full body hydration. Then, it bounced backwards like jelly, instantly widening the distance between it and Qingming. After it turned back into human form, Qingming keenly noticed that a large part of its chakra was consumed. Sure enough, any ability has its limit. Indeed, the water transformation technique can make Kazuna's Genjutsu immune to 100% physical attacks, and can also make him ignore many ninjutsu attacks. But all of this requires chakra support. Once the chakra is insufficient, it is impossible to be immune to physical attacks or resist ninjutsu attacks. Therefore, the simplest way to deal with him is to consume a large amount of his chakra. With this thought, Qingming released the shadow clone technique and let the chakra in the body of the shadow just return to the main body. After adjusting to the best state at the moment, Qingming attacked Kazuna's Genjutsu without hesitation. This time, he did not hold back at all. Except for a few abilities such as the Mangekyo Sharingan, he used all the other abilities that could be used. Therefore, in a short period of time, Kazuna's Genjutsu suffered a devastating blow, and the chakra in his body decreased at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not only that, because of Qingming's crazy offensive, he was forced to constantly transform into water, and there was not much chance to fight back. Basically, he was either being beaten or on the way to being beaten. This made Kazuna's Genjutsu very depressed. However, no matter how aggrieved he was, in the face of absolute strength, he could only endure it. Time passed by every second. Qingming's Sharingan turned slightly, carefully observing the state of Hazuki's Genjutsu. After confirming that the chakra in his body had dropped to the critical point and that he would have no chance if he did not resist, he slowed down his attack slightly, deliberately leaving the opponent a chance to counterattack. Hazuki's Genjutsu, who had been suppressed to the extreme, did not care to distinguish whether this was a trap, or rather, he had no time to distinguish. Almost at the moment when Qingming showed a flaw, he took action. He saw a sword thrust out, directly approaching Qingming's heart. Qingming was forced to retreat half a step and avoided the attack. Hazuki's Genjutsu took this opportunity to retreat to the rear, instantly widening the distance between him and Qingming, trying to return to the Mist Ninja team and rely on them to save his life. However, all this was within Qingming's calculations, and the hope he saw was just an illusion. Almost at the moment he turned around, Qingming's body flashed with green light, and instantly came behind him, then stretched out his left hand and pressed on his back. Although at the critical moment, Hazuki's Genjutsu used up the last of his chakra and completed the water transformation again, he still couldn't escape. Zzzz, a harsh friction sound was heard. A strong wind blew. The next moment, Hazuki's Genjutsu's body was wrapped in a ball of energy. Then, Hazuki's Genjutsu's painful roar came from inside. If you look closely, you can find that in the energy ball, there are countless tiny chakra needles shuttling back and forth. This is not any other ninjutsu, but the S-level forbidden technique, wind style, Shuriken. It is true that Hazuki's Genjutsu's water transformation technique is very tricky and can be immune to a lot of damage, But in the case of insufficient chakra, facing the cellular level attack of wind style, Rasenshuriken, it is powerless to resist. In just a moment, he was forced to exit the water state because of the exhaustion of chakra. Then, the next moment, he lost his life. Chapter 423 Blockage. Qingming sighed lightly at the corpse of Hazuki's Angetsu on the ground. It must be said that among the Jonin he had fought, Hazuki's Angetsu might not be the strongest, but he was definitely the hardest to kill. Because there were so many people and eyes, he couldn't use the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan, and he hadn't developed a lightning release, so he couldn't effectively restrain his water transformation technique. So, it took a lot of effort. Only because he was strong and had abundant chakra, he could defeat him with one force and kill him in such a short time. Otherwise, it's hard to say. Shaking his head, Qingming stopped thinking about it and turned his attention to the battlefield around him. Before, when he and Hazuki's Angetsu fought fiercely, although the ninjas of both sides were far away from this area, they were all paying attention to this side. And now, Hazuki's Angetsu was killed by him, not to mention the Konoha ninjas, their morale was naturally boosted. On the contrary, the Kurigakure ninjas showed obvious restlessness. Even though their current number is still 50% higher than that of Konoha, they still seem to lack confidence. And this is the role of high-level ninjas on the battlefield. Qingming's eyes quickly swept over these people, and finally looked at Kurosaki Takeo, who was struggling to get up and prepared to go to the crowd of Kurigakure to take refuge not far away. The other party was injured by his Rasengan not long ago, and he has been recovering from the injury for some time, but until now, he has not recovered much. It just so happens that he consumed a lot of chakra in order to kill Kazuna's Angetsu just now, and it is time to replenish it. With this thought, Qingming's figure flashed, and he came in front of the other party in the blink of an eye. Looking at Qingming, who suddenly appeared, Kurosaki Takeo stopped, and a flash of despair flashed in his eyes. However, after despair, there is endless madness. He raised the kunai in his hand, shouted, and stabbed directly at Qingming. However, looking at the other party's actions, Qingming did not move at all. The next moment, just when the kunai was about to touch him, Kurosaki Takeo froze in place, and his ferocious face instantly fell into confusion. Illusion. Sharingan. It turned out that at the moment when the two sides looked at each other just now, Qingming pulled his consciousness into the illusion. In this way, his movements naturally stopped. Looking at the motionless Kurosaki Takeo, Qingming raised his hand without any delay and planned to perform the chakra absorption technique to drain the opponent's chakra. However, at this moment, two voices sounded almost at the same time. Captain Kurosaki, stop! Hearing this sudden voice, Qingming stopped the action of making hand seals immediately, and then looked towards the distance in the direction of the sound. He saw two figures rushing towards him. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, several kunai shot out quickly. Qingming slightly turned his body to avoid the attack. However, this was just the beginning. The next moment, the two people quickly completed the hand seals and each performed an ninjutsu. Water style, water column gun, water style, water shotgun. A column of water and a large number of water bullets flew towards him. One went straight to his chest, trying to give him a fatal blow, while the other blocked his escape path, trying to restrict his movements. It can be seen that they cooperated very well, and they must have done this many times in the past. However, this trick might be useful for others, but it was not enough for Qingming. Almost without any hesitation, Qingming changed his hand seals, and the chakra absorption technique that was originally prepared to be performed suddenly turned into water style, water array wall. In an instant, a wall of water rose in front of him, and the water columns and water bullets hit it, splashing water, but it did not do anything to him. Seeing this scene, the two attacking mist-hidden ninjas changed their expressions slightly, but after looking at Kurosaki Takeo, who stood still, they still gritted their teeth and continued to rush towards him. HMPH. Seeing this, Qingming snorted coldly, formed seals with his hands again, and performed another water-style ninjutsu, water-style, water dragon bullet technique. Roar! With a roar, a giant water dragon appeared in the field, and then rushed towards the two people. Be careful, the one on the right of the two people warned. While speaking, he immediately rushed to the right to avoid the attack of the water dragon. And after receiving the warning from his companion, the one on the left also dodged to the left at the same time. The next moment, the water dragon hit the ground between the two people, splashing a lot of water, temporarily separating the two people. However, It did not hurt them. Just when the two were about to breathe a sigh of relief, a transparent wind blade swept past quickly and cut straight to the neck of the mist ninja on the right. Although he dodged in time, one of his arms was still cut off by the wind blade. Ah! A quick and short cry of pain came out of his mouth. Seeing this, the mist ninja on the left anxiously shouted, "Kita! What's wrong with you?" However, as soon as he said this, he inexplicably felt a chill. In his sight, Qingming's figure had disappeared at some point. He glanced back and saw a figure standing there with a knife. If it wasn't Qingming, who else could it be? In an instant, his heart was in his throat, and he wanted to rush forward to avoid the upcoming attack. However, it was too late. Before he could take a step, the sharp tip of the knife pierced his chest and pierced his heart completely. Puff! A large mouthful of blood was spit out by him. Then, his life force quickly weakened. Qingming had no mercy at all, and with a hiss, he directly pulled out a long sword. And this made his breath weaker, and then it quickly disappeared. At this time, Qingming looked at the mist-hidden ninja on the right. At this time, he had lost an arm and his face was extremely pale. Qingming's body was flashing with green light. The next moment, he disappeared from the spot. Seeing this scene, Kita Shiazuo's expression suddenly changed, but before he could do anything, a long knife pierced his abdomen. Kita Shiazuo looked down at the long knife that went straight into his lower abdomen, then looked up at the figure that suddenly appeared in front of him, with a crazy look on his face. He forced himself to swallow the blood that surged to his throat and roared, "Monster, let's die together." As he said that, he was about to activate the detonating talisman that had been hidden in his palm. Unfortunately, before he could make any move, the whole person fell into stagnation. The moment before he lost consciousness, he only remembered that his vision seemed to be occupied by a pair of scarlet Sharingan. Qingming looked at the figure who had fallen into the illusion, shook his head, then raised his hand to form a seal, and performed the ninjutsu, chakra absorption technique. In an instant, a large amount of chakra flowed out of his body, madly poured into his palm, and then through his chakra meridians, it was transformed into Qingming's unique chakra. Level 6 Chakra Absorption Technique can absorb 2000 chakra points from the target per second and convert 100% of it into its own chakra. After the target's chakra is sucked dry, it will also forcibly extract the target's spiritual energy and physical energy to synthesize chakra. Basically, every hostile ninja whose chakra is extracted by Qingming will eventually be eaten up, and Shiazuo Kita is no exception. Bang! After a few seconds, his slightly shriveled body fell to the ground. Qingming retracted his palm and walked towards Kurosaki Takeo. This time, no one dared to stop him. Chapter 424 Seeking Help. Walking back to Kurosaki Takeo, Qingming raised his hand to seal and was about to perform the chakra absorption technique to absorb the chakra from the other party's body. But at this moment, he suddenly seemed to have discovered something, and the hand seal on his hand changed, and then he said at the same time, "Okay, now that you're awake, don't pretend." As soon as Qingming's voice fell, Kurosaki Takeo opened his eyes. The next moment, he raised his right hand in the air and swung it out instantly, and the kunai in his palm cut towards Qingming's throat like lightning. The speed of this time was not slow. At this time, even if Qingming used the same trick again and performed the illusion Sharingan again, it might not be able to control the other party in time. Unfortunately, he had already started preparing when he found something wrong. Therefore, it can be seen that Kurosaki Takeo just made a move, and the whole person froze in place again. And this time, Kurosaki Takeo did not lose consciousness. At this moment, he only felt a sharp pain in his body, and his limbs seemed to be nailed by several huge iron nails, unable to move. That's right, this is the C-level ninjutsu, magical shackle technique. Although this technique is only C-level, if you are prepared, the effect is not worse than the illusion Sharingan. Especially the illusion Sharingan released instantly, its effect may not be as good as the magic shackle technique. Facing the other party's cannibalistic eyes, Qingming calmly took off the kunai in the other party's hand, and then stabbed it backhand, stabbing it into the other party's lower abdomen. The strong pain came, making Kurosaki Takeo's pupils widen. He wanted to speak, but he couldn't say a word. At this moment, his state has dropped to the extreme. It will not be long before the other party will die. Qingming seized the time, formed a seal and performed the ninjutsu, chakra absorption technique. When he pressed his palm on Kurosaki Takeo's heart, He felt that the chakra in his body was like a flood that broke through the dam, gushing out crazily, and it was lost completely in the breath. Feeling the chakra pouring into his body, Qingming was still not satisfied. So, he continued to extract the other party's spiritual energy and physical energy, and finally obtained nearly 20,000 points of chakra, and then let it go. It's not that after squeezing the other party dry, he can only get so little chakra. It's that the other party can no longer withstand such squeezing and has completely lost his life, which forced him to stop. Chakra is a fusion of spiritual energy and physical energy. Once a person dies, the spiritual energy will dissipate, and naturally chakra cannot be extracted. Bang let the other party's body fall to the ground. Qingming retracted his gaze and looked up at the surrounding battlefield. At this time, the 5 mist-hidden ninjas were still fighting against the 5 Konoha Jonins. Originally, the mist-hidden ninjas still had some initiative. But after he killed Kazuna Zangetsu and others, these guys, one by one, seemed to have become quails, while shrinking their offensives, and did not dare to take the initiative to attack, as if they were afraid of provoking him. In this regard, Qingming can only say that they thought too much. After killing several Kurigakure Jonins in succession, Qingming no longer wanted to attack them. It was not that he had any scruples or felt pity. But Konoha was already unable to hold on to the battle between the mid-level and low-level ninjas. After all, Konoha was just a temporary team, far less well-prepared than Kurigakure. In addition, the huge gap in the number of people between the two sides seemed to be unable to hold on. It was Qingming who showed his power and killed several enemy Jonins, boosting their morale, otherwise they would have collapsed long ago. Despite this, their casualties were also very heavy, and the pressure they faced was increasing, and they urgently needed his help. In response, Qingming did not delay, and kicked the ground with his feet. The whole person rushed out in an instant, rushing towards a small battle group of Kurigakure and Konoha at a very fast speed. There were more than 20 Kurigakure ninjas and more than 10 Konoha ninjas here. On average, each Konoha ninja had to face the attack of at least 2 Kurigakure ninjas, and the situation was very critical. At a certain moment, Qingming's figure suddenly appeared. The Genjutsu Sharingan immobilized one person, and the instant sword technique was performed. Qingming flashed behind another mist ninja. The next moment, a flash of cold light flashed, and the sharp edge condensed by the rich wind chakra slashed across the man's neck and cut off his head. Puff! A large amount of blood gushed out, like a fountain, rushing up several meters high. Qingming flashed again, avoiding the blood rain all over the sky, and at the same time came to the man who was fixed by his Genjutsu Sharingan at a distance. Swoosh! The cold light flashed. Qingming swung a knife and instantly cut the man's throat. The strong feeling of suffocation awakened the mist ninja. He covered his throat and looked at Qingming, who was close at hand, his eyes full of fear. Qingming ignored the other party, and quickly scanned the surroundings with his Sharingan, found the next target, and performed the instant sword technique again and rushed over. In this way, Qingming was like a ghost, moving among the crowd, and almost every attack could cause considerable casualties. During this period, the mist ninjas did try to besiege him, but without the restraint of the Jonin, these people could not form an effective encirclement at all. In this way, let alone hurt him. Therefore, in just a few minutes, Qingming killed these mist ninjas and liberated the Konoha ninjas present. Qingming did not waste any words and immediately asked these people to help others. And he himself went back to the battle group in a more critical situation. In this way, Qingming shuttled through the entire battlefield like a firefighter, and he went wherever there was danger. When the mist ninjas met him, they were like losing their parents. And when the Konoha ninjas met him, they smiled one by one. Time passed by every second. As Qingming continued to put out the fire, the situation in the field gradually returned to a balance from leaning towards the mist ninjas. It can be predicted that if this continues, it will not take long for Konoha to change from a balance to an advantage, and may even win in the end. And this is something Kurigakure absolutely cannot accept. Precisely because of this, Kurigakure ninjas reported the situation here to the commander of the main battlefield through summoning beasts early on, requesting support. All this was done in secret, and Qingming had no idea. Therefore, he is still doing his best to save the situation. However, even if he knew, he would not change his strategy. No matter what actions Kurigakure takes, it is very necessary to free up more manpower. If these Konoha ninjas are allowed to be pinned down, it would be meaningless even if they knew Kurigakure would support them. They can't be left alone to fight the other side, right? Therefore, it is more important to deal with the Kurigakure ninjas on the field first. As for the others, Qingming can only say, when the enemy comes, the general will stop him, when the water comes, the earth will cover it. Chapter 425 Hidden Dangers and Opportunities. At the same time, on the other side, east of the Blackstone stronghold, on a mist-hidden warship about 2 kilometers away from the coastline, the mist-hidden ninja in charge of the command received a request for help from the surprise attack force and frowned slightly. After he found that it was difficult to break through the front battlefield, he activated the backup plan and ordered another team left in Fiayu Town to take the land route and launch a surprise attack from the south of the Blackstone stronghold. As a result, the surprise mission was not completed, but he was trapped there. Moreover, from the intelligence, the loss was not small. This made Osaoyuki very disappointed. Humph, it's this Uchiha Qingming again. Osaoyuki looked at the intelligence in his hand and snorted coldly. Before, their whereabouts were discovered by the other party, and now his backup plan was blocked by him again, which made Osaoyuki disgusted with Uchiha Qingming to the extreme. Knock, knock, knock. At this moment, there was a sudden knock on the door. Come in. Osaoyuki knew who the person was after a little intuition, so he put away the intelligence and spoke. Creak. The wooden door of the cabin was pushed open, and a figure walked in. Captain, are you looking for me? The man asked without any nonsense. Yes, Osaoyuki nodded and said, Qing, something happened to the surprise attack team. I need you to go there. That's right. The man who came was none other than Qing, who was known as the Baiyan Killer. Qing frowned when he heard what Osaoyuki said, and said, Isn't there a Zangetsu Jonin over there? What's the problem? Humph. Hearing this, Osaoyuki snorted again and said, Don't mention him, he's dead now. What? Qing was very shocked to hear the news. Privately, he had a good relationship with Hazuki's Zangetsu and was very clear about his abilities. Not to mention how strong he was, his ability to save his life was absolutely first class. But now, Osaoyuki suddenly told him that the other party was dead. How could he not be surprised? However, he soon calmed down and asked in a deep voice, Who killed him? Uchiha Qingming. Osaoyuki did not hide anything and answered directly. Him again. Qing frowned. Before, he felt that the other party was abnormal and was now investigating secretly. He never thought that he would hear this name again so soon. Osaoyuki did not want to waste words and said directly, The situation over there is very bad now. You lead the reserve team to rush over immediately. Remember, your mission is not only to rescue them, but more importantly, to find an opportunity to attack the Blackstone stronghold from the south. At this point, he paused for a moment before continuing, Of course, if possible, get rid of Uchiha Qingming. He almost gritted his teeth to say the last few words. Hearing this, Qing hesitated for a moment, but still agreed. The first 2 tasks were fine, and he was still somewhat confident that he could complete them, but to be honest, he was not sure about the requirement to solve Uchiha Qingming. The village has targeted the other party several times, but until now, Uchiha Qingming is still alive and kicking. He does not think that his ability can be compared with an entire think tank. Intuition tells Qing that to deal with Uchiha Qingming, he must first figure out what the abnormality he found that night is. Otherwise, no matter how many times he tries, it may be in vain. However, since the captain has given the order, he can only accept it. So, after responding, he went down to prepare. At this time, Qingming did not know that Qing had already touched the tail of his opening of the Mangekyo Sharingan. If he gave the other party some time, he might be able to know his biggest trump card. Of course, even if the other party knew that he had opened the Mangekyo Sharingan, it did not mean that he could crack the ability of his Mangekyo Sharingan. But this would undoubtedly bring him some troubles. Apart from anything else, if the other party announced this news, he would definitely have a lot of trouble. By then, whether in the village or outside the village, those who coveted his eyes would take action. Although with his current strength, if he no longer hides, he doesn't have to be afraid of these people, but when there are too many flies, it is also very annoying. Therefore, Qingming has been trying his best to hide his Mangekyo Sharingan. The purpose is to avoid being in the spotlight. If he knew that Qing had already found out this step, he would definitely take the initiative to kill the other party. Unfortunately, he didn't know. However, although Qingming didn't know this, Osaoyuki's arrangement gave him the opportunity to nip the crisis in the bud. As for the reason, it was very simple. Not long ago, he just had the idea of making up for his shortcomings in reconnaissance, and set his sights on Qing. If he solved the other party because of this time, he could naturally eliminate the hidden danger of exposing the main Gekyo Sharingan. If he didn't do this, it would probably not be long before his main Gekyo Sharingan would be exposed. The specific situation depends on Qingming's choice. In a flash, almost half an hour passed. On the other side, as Qingming continued to take action, Konoha had completely turned from a disadvantage to an advantage, and now it was almost suppressing Kirigakure. In addition, it is worth mentioning that while acting as a firefighter, Qingming also took the time to help a Konoha special Jonin who was defeated by his opponent and solve his opponent. In other words, there were only 4 Jonins left in the field. After seeing that the battlefield of the middle and lower ninjas had stabilized, Qingming planned to deal with these 4 people, thus completely establishing the victory. But at this moment, a familiar voice broke into his mind. Who else could it be if not Yamanaka Aoi? At this time, he heard him say, Qingming Jonin, according to the latest intelligence, Kirigakure has recently transferred a troop, and it seems that they are ready to come here for support. Captain Sano asked you to be careful. Support? How many people? Qingming stopped immediately after hearing this and asked in his mind. It's not clear yet, Yamanaka Aoi replied somewhat embarrassedly. The other party used the reserve troops. Our people can't get close and can't make an accurate judgment. Hearing this explanation, Qingming felt speechless. But soon, he noticed a key point from the other party's words, that is, the Kirigakure came to support this time, the reserve troops. In other words, the troops that have not yet appeared on the battlefield. As far as he knew, in order to deal with the mist ninjas on the scene, Nobuhisa Sano had already mobilized almost all the available manpower in the base. In other words, they no longer had any extra manpower to mobilize. With this thought in mind, Qingming said in a bad tone, you won't tell me that the base has no support this time? Of course not. Yamanaka Aoi seemed to hear the bad tone in Qingming's voice, and immediately denied it. Captain Sano has already drawn people from the battlefield. It won't be long before they will be sent here. Qingming Jonin, your task is to delay time as much as possible. That's about right. After listening to the other party's narration, Qingming murmured. Then, without saying anything more, he said directly, okay, I know all this. You tell Captain Sano to hurry up, and I'll go to scout first. After that, without waiting for Yamanaka Aoi to respond, he dispelled the other party's mental power. Without time to ponder the wonders of the other party's heart-to-heart technique, Qingming raised his hands, quickly completed the seal, and performed the ninjutsu, wind style, wings of wind. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.